Hey, Wide Awake family. If you see this, it's your sign to smash that like button. Yes, you listening right now. That way YouTube shows you more amazing stories like this one. We love you all. Now enjoy the stories.
I did not feel scared when I left his house. That part still messes with me. I felt relieved, if anything. The meetup had been awkward and kind of off, but nothing explosive. No yelling, no locks clicking, no big red flags waving in my face. Just one of those deals that leaves you thinking, I am glad that is over. I had no idea that the worst part was still loading. The item itself was boring. A standing lamp. Tall, thin, ugly in a way that works if you need light more than style. The listing said moving sale, cash only, pickup after 6. The price was $35. I needed light for my living room and I was tired of scrolling, so I messaged. The seller responded slow but polite. Short answers. No emojis. The address was in a quiet neighborhood with long driveways and tall hedges. The kind of place where every house looks like it has something to hide just because of how spaced out everything is. I told a friend where I was going out of habit, then drove over as the sun was starting to dip. The house was dark except for one light inside. No porch light. I knocked and waited longer than I liked. Just as I was about to message, the door opened. He stood there holding the lamp already, like he wanted to keep the interaction as short as possible. He did not invite me inside at first. We talked on the porch. I checked the lamp. It worked. Nothing special. I handed over the cash, and he took it without counting. That alone felt weird, but I had seen it before. Then he said the cord was longer inside and asked if I wanted to check it. I hesitated. He noticed and said it was fine if I did not. That made me trust him more for some reason. I said I would take a quick look. Inside, the house felt colder than outside. Not temperature cold. Empty cold. Furniture was pushed against walls. No photos. No decorations. The lamp cord ran along the floor into the living room where it had been plugged in before. I followed him in just far enough to see it was intact. The whole time I had this feeling of being watched, but I blamed it on nerves. I do that a lot. I tell myself I am being dramatic because nothing obvious is wrong. We wrapped up fast. I thanked him, picked up the lamp, and left. He closed the door behind me quietly. No wave. No goodbye. I walked to my car feeling fine. Annoyed at myself for overthinking. The drive home was normal. Traffic. Music. Red lights. By the time I parked, the meetup was already fading into the pile of forgettable marketplace moments. It was almost an hour later when my phone buzzed. A message from the seller. He said I forgot something. That made my stomach tighten a little. I checked my pockets. Phone, wallet. Keys. Everything was there. I asked what he meant. He sent a photo. It took my brain a second to understand what I was looking at. It was me. Standing on his porch. Holding the lamp. My back slightly turned. My face visible in profile. The angle was wrong for a normal photo. It was taken from inside the house, through the front window, at a height that suggested it was not handheld. It looked steady. Framed. My hand started shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I zoomed in. It was definitely me. Same jacket. Same shoes. Same dumb way I stand when I am waiting for something. The timestamp was from minutes after I left. Before I could type anything, another message came in. He said check Marketplace. I opened the app with my heart pounding. There it was. A new listing. The photo was the same one he had just sent me. The title was vague. Something like great condition, barely used. The category was home decor. The price was $40. The description was short and empty, just like his other listings. The item for sale was me. Not my name, not my face labeled, just the photo. My body, my jacket, my presence turned into an object. I felt like I could not breathe. My chest tightened, and my vision blurred. My phone buzzed again, but I could not bring myself to look. I shut the app and locked my phone like that could undo what I had just seen. Then the panic hit. How many photos did he have? When did he take them? How long had he been watching? Was the camera still there? Did he know where I lived? I went around my apartment checking locks, even though I knew that would not help. I closed blinds, turned off lights. Every sound outside made me flinch. I opened the messages again. He said I was photogenic. He said people like unique listings. He said he could take it down if I wanted it, but it was already getting attention. I scrolled back to the listing. There were comments already. Laughing reactions. People tagging friends. Asking what it was supposed to be. One comment asked if it came with a lamp. My stomach turned. I reported the listing. I reported the messages. I sent screenshots. I typed out explanations with shaking hands. The automated response told me they would review it. That felt like nothing. I blocked him, but the listing stayed up. Blocking does not erase what is already posted. I refreshed. The price dropped to $30. My photo was still there. I started spiraling. I imagined him watching me through my screen. Imagined him taking more photos. Imagined this being a game he played with buyers who came alone. I checked his profile. Dozens of listings, all different items. Lamps, chairs, mirrors. But every photo was taken from inside the same house, same angle, same window reflection barely visible if you looked closely. I noticed something else then. In the background of some older listings, barely noticeable were people. Partial reflections, legs, backs, shoes on porches. Other buyers. Other listings. My skin crawled. I messaged my friend and told them everything. They told me to call the police. I did. Explaining it out loud made it feel unreal, like I was describing a nightmare that did not make sense when spoken. They took it seriously enough to come by. They looked at the messages, the listing, the profile. They told me to stay inside while they went to the address. I waited for hours with my lights off, phone clutched in my hands. Later, I got a call. They said the house was empty. No one answered. No cars. No sign of anyone lived there. The neighbors said the place was usually quiet. One person said different people came and went. Short visits. Strangers. The officers said they would file a report. They said the listing would likely be taken down. They said there was not much else they could do right now. That night, the listing disappeared. The profile disappeared too. I did not sleep. For days after, I felt like I was being watched. I avoided windows. I stopped scrolling Marketplace entirely. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. A week later, curiosity got the better of me. I searched Marketplace again. A new account. A new listing. Different town. Same style. A photo of someone standing on a porch holding a small table. Not me. Someone else. I reported it again. I do not know if it mattered. I still have the lamp. It works fine. But every time I turn it on, I think about how easily I became a listing. How quickly a normal meetup turned into something that followed me home without moving an inch. Some sellers take your money. Some take your time. Some take something you did not even realize you were handing over just by showing up. I almost did not go because it felt too serious for a random weekday. I just needed a laptop. Mine had been freezing up every 10 minutes, and the fan sounded like it was chewing gravel. I was behind at assignments, and borrowing one felt awkward, so Marketplace felt like the fastest fix. The listing was clean and boring in a good way. Used laptop, decent specs, wiped and ready. Price was $450. Not a steal, not suspicious, just normal. The seller messaged back with short replies. Polite but stiff. No emojis. No jokes. They sent an address and asked me to come that evening. Pickup only, of course. I told a friend where I was going out of habit, grabbed the cash, and headed out while the sky was still light. The address took me to a quiet cul-de-sac with houses that all looked the same but slightly tired. Lawns trimmed but not loved. Porch lights already on even though it was early. The seller's house had no car in the driveway, which I noticed right away. The door opened as soon as I knocked. He was older than I expected. Not old, just not the age I imagined selling a used laptop online. His smile was tight and rehearsed. He stepped aside and let me in without saying much. The house was clean but bare. Furniture pushed against walls, floors mostly empty, like someone was getting ready to move or had already moved and forgotten to finish. The laptop was on the kitchen table, open and on. It looked good, screen bright. Keyboard clean. I sat down and started checking it over. Everything seemed fine. No locked accounts, storage wiped, battery decent. He stood a few feet away watching me like a teacher waiting for a test to finish. I was almost relieved. Finally, a normal one. Then he pulled out the paper. It was a single sheet torn from a notebook, edges ragged. Handwriting covered most of it. Neat but cramped, like he was trying to fit as much as possible onto one page. He slid it across the table toward me before I even finished checking the laptop. He told me I needed to sign it before he would take the money. He said it was just a formality. I picked it up and read it. It was a receipt, technically. It had the date, the item description, the amount. Then it kept going. It said that by signing, I accepted the item as it is and agreed that the seller would not be responsible for anything related to it. Not just defects. Not just returns. It went way further. It said I released him from all future consequences. That phrase sat heavy on the page. Not legal sounding. Not specific. Just vague and final in a way that made my stomach drop. It did not mention time limits. It did not mention reasons. It was just everything. Forever. My heart started racing. I asked why that was necessary. He said he had been burned before. He said people tried to come back with problems that were not his fault. He said this was easier. I flipped the page over. Nothing on the back. Just that one side full of words trying to protect him from something I did not understand yet. I told him I was not comfortable signing it. I said I was fine with no returns, but this felt like too much. I tried to keep my voice calm. His face changed instantly. Not angry, but tight, like a door closing. He told me it was required. He said everyone signed it. He said if I did not, the sale was off. He said he could not risk it. That word risk stuck with me. I looked around the kitchen then, really looked. The counters were bare. No photos on the fridge. No mail. No trash. A house felt staged, like the couch and table were just props. The only personal thing I saw was a small stack of similar papers clipped together near the sink. Receipts. I picked one up before he could stop me. Different handwriting styles. Different names. Different dates, all signed at the bottom. My chest tightened. How many people had been here? How many had signed without really reading? I asked what the consequences were supposed to mean. He did not answer directly. He said the laptop was clean and legal. He said he was just protecting himself. He said if I planned to use it normally, I had nothing to worry about. That made it worse. I felt that familiar cold feeling crawl up my spine, the one that tells you something is wrong even if you cannot explain it yet. I pushed the paper back toward him and told him I was leaving. He blocked my path without touching me, just stepping into the space between me and the door. His voice stayed calm but firm. He said he had already turned other people away that night. He said I should not waste his time. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I did not want to escalate. I just wanted out. I told him I would pay extra if that was the issue. I said I did not need a receipt at all. He shook his head, said it had to be signed, said he needed proof that I accepted responsibility. I noticed then that the laptop's webcam light was on even though I was not using it, a tiny dot glowing steady. I asked about that. He reached over and closed the laptop slowly, like he did not want me looking at it anymore. He said it was nothing, just a glitch. My hands started shaking. I stood up and told him again I was leaving. This time I moved toward the door without waiting for a response. He stepped aside, but not all the way. He held the paper out toward me one more time and said it would be easier if I just signed. He said it would save us both trouble. I pushed past him and grabbed the door handle. It opened easily. The air outside felt colder than it should have. I stepped out and did not look back until I was halfway down the driveway. He was standing in the doorway watching me go, the paper still in his hand. I got in my car and locked the doors immediately. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the keys once. I sat there breathing hard, trying to slow my heart down. After a minute, I pulled away. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. A message from him. He said he could lower the price if I came back. He said the receipt was just to keep things simple. I did not respond. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I searched the phrase he had written on the receipt. Not the whole thing, just the part about future consequences. Buried in forum posts and complaint threads, I found something that made my stomach drop. Other people had mentioned similar receipts. Different sellers. Same wording. Laptops, phones, hard drives. Items that could hold things. Items that could connect to other things. People said after buying, strange stuff happened. Accounts flagged. Visits from authorities. Devices linked to things they had never done. When they tried to contact the seller sent photos of the signed receipt and blocked them. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling like I had walked away from a trap without realizing how close I came to stepping in it. The next day, I checked Marketplace. The laptop listing was gone. The seller profile was still there, but scrubbed. No active listings. No photos. Just a name and an empty page. A few days later, a new listing appeared in a nearby town. Similar laptop, similar price. Different photos. The description included a line about a simple receipt required for peace of mind. I closed the app. I bought a laptop from a store a week later. Overpriced. Boring. Came with a real receipt printed on thick paper. I kept it anyway, folded in my wallet for days like proof that normal transactions still existed. Sometimes the scariest part is not what you see, but what someone wants you to agree to before you even know what you are holding. I did not plan on touching that couch at all. I just wanted to look at it, maybe sit on it for a second, decide if it was worth the hassle. I had learned by then that helping strangers move furniture was how you ended up sore, annoyed, or stuck in awkward situations. But that day, I ignored that little voice in my head because the listing looked normal and I was tired of my living room feeling empty and echoey. The couch popped up on Marketplace mid-afternoon. Brown fabric, wide cushions, nothing fancy. The description said sturdy and heavy, needs 2 people to move. The price was $180. Not cheap, not wild. The photo showed it inside a small apartment, pushed against a wall with a window behind it. Nothing weird in the background, just a couch. The seller messaged back fast and seemed grateful I could come the same day. They said they were moving stuff around and the couch was blocking things. They asked if I would mind helping lift it a little so I could see the bottom and the frame. That sounded reasonable enough. I told myself I could just say no if it felt wrong. The address was a low-rise apartment building near a busy road. Not sketchy, just old. Concrete stairs, chipped paint, that constant smell of cooking from different units mixing together. I parked out front and texted that I was there. The seller opened the door almost immediately. They looked rushed, like they had been pacing waiting for me. The apartment was dim, even though it was still daylight outside. Blinds half closed, lights on in the hallway. The couch sat in the center of the living room like it was the only thing that mattered. Up close, the couch looked heavier than I expected. Thick cushions, solid frame. The seller talked a lot, explaining how it had been through multiple moves, how it could take a beating. I nodded and walked around it, checking seams, pushing down on cushions. I noticed then that the couch sat oddly low on one side, like something underneath was pressing up. I pointed it out casually. The seller said the legs were uneven and asked if I could help tilt it so they could show me the underside. They grabbed one end and waited for me to grab the other. This was the moment I could have walked away. I bent down and lifted. The couch was way heavier than it should have been. Not just solid, but weighted in a strange way. As we tilted it, I saw that the bottom fabric had been cut and loosely stapled back on. Something hard was taped underneath. Not part of the frame. Not padding. My heart jumped. I'd opened my mouth to say something, but I never got the chance. The door exploded inward. The sound was so loud it felt like it punched me in the chest. Wood cracking, metal slamming, shouting all at once. I dropped my end of the couch instinctively and stumbled backward, tripping over my own feet. Police flooded the apartment. There were so many of them it did not make sense at first. Uniforms, boots, radios crackling. Someone grabbed my arm and shoved me against the wall, telling me not to move. My brain lagged behind everything happening. I kept thinking I had walked into the wrong apartment by mistake. The seller froze completely, hands still on the couch, eyes wide like they had seen a ghost. They did not run. They did not speak. They just stood there shaking. Officers rushed past me and went straight for the couch. One of them cut the tape underneath and pulled out a black duffel bag. Then another. Then another. They unzipped one and I saw electronics stacked inside. Laptops. Tablets, still with stickers on them. Brand new. Another bag had power tools. Boxed. Never opened. Another had jewelry cases. The kind you see behind glass at stores. My legs went weak. I slid down the wall without meaning to, my hands numb. I realized in a flash that I was holding the couch that hid all of this when the door came down. That if I had arrived earlier or later, things could have gone very differently. An officer asked me what I was doing there. I tried to answer, but my voice shook so bad I barely recognized it. I told them I was there to buy the couch. I showed them the messages on my phone with trembling fingers. They took my phone and scrolled, nodding to each other. Apparently, the apartment had been under watch. Stolen goods from multiple break-ins had been traced there. The couch was used to hide the bulk items that were hardest to move quickly. Buyers like me were cover. Normal faces. Normal reasons for being there. The seller was cuffed without a word. They finally looked at me then, eyes full of something I could not name. Anger, panic, regret, maybe all of it mixed together. The apartment felt smaller with the police inside it. Crowded, loud, lights flashing through the windows. Neighbors gathered in the hallway, whispering, trying to see past officers blocking the door. I was led outside and told to sit on the curb. My hands would not stop shaking. I kept replaying the moment I bent down to lift the couch. How close my hands were to the bags taped underneath. How normal it felt right up until it did not. One officer came out and told me I was not in trouble. They said I did the right thing by cooperating. They said I was lucky. That word stuck with me. As I sat there, I saw them carry the couch out in pieces. Cushions ripped open, fabric torn, more items spilling out. It felt endless, like the couch was some kind of storage unit disguised as furniture. People stared as they loaded everything into vans. Some neighbors looked shocked. Others looked like they had known something was off, but never said anything. After a while, they let me leave. My car felt strange when I got back into it, like it was too quiet. My body still buzzed with adrenaline. I sat there for a minute before turning the key, hands slick with sweat. On the drive home, my phone buzzed with messages from friends asking where I was. I did not answer right away. I needed time to process how close I came to being tangled up in something way bigger than a couch sale. Later that night, I checked Marketplace out of habit. The listing was gone. The seller profile was gone too, like it had never existed. I could still feel the weight of that couch in my arms days later. The unnatural heaviness. The way it fought being lifted. Every time I thought about it, my stomach tightened. I did not buy a couch for a long time after that. My living room stayed empty except for a folding chair and the lamp. Every time someone asked if I could help move something, I said no without explaining. Sometimes the danger is not the item you are buying, it is what you are asked to lift without knowing what is really underneath.
Hey guys, really sorry to interrupt. If you're still listening, then you're enjoying the story so far. And if you are enjoying, then please hit that like button. That's all I ask of you. Thanks so much. Now back to the stories.
I noticed the crib before I noticed how quiet the listing felt. Not quiet like peaceful, quiet like something missing. Most baby stuff posts are emotional in some way. Too many words, too many hearts. Stories about outgrowing things. This one was just a picture and a price. White wooden crib, adjustable height, barely used. The caption said moving soon, need gone. The price was $120, not suspiciously low, just enough to feel reasonable. I was scrolling late at night, half paying attention, when it came up. I read it twice because it felt like it was meant for me. My sister was pregnant and stressed about money, and I had promised I would help with something big. A crib felt like a good place to start. I messaged right away. The seller replied fast. Too fast for that hour. She thanked me for my interest and said she got a lot of messages. She said she could hold it if I sent a small deposit. Just $30. That should have been the moment I stopped. But I did not. I told myself it made sense. Popular item. Baby stuff always goes fast. She sent pictures after that. More angles. Closer shots. Even one with a folded baby blanket draped over the side like it was staged on purpose. It looked real. It felt real. She talked about how her baby had outgrown it faster than expected. She said moving was stressful with a little one. I believed her because I wanted to. I sent the deposit. Right after, she told me pickup would be the next afternoon. She gave me an address on the edge of town. Small houses, older area. She said to message when I was on the way. I did. She replied with a thumbs up and a heart. The next day, I drove out feeling good about myself, like I was actually being helpful instead of just saying I would be. I even stopped to buy a small pack of diapers because I thought it would be a nice gesture. That thought makes me feel stupid now. The house was a single-story place with faded paint and no toys in the yard. That did not strike me right away. Not everyone leaves stuff outside. I parked and messaged that I was there. No response. I waited a few minutes, checking my phone, glancing at the house. The blinds were closed. No movement. I knocked lightly. Nothing. I messaged again. Still nothing. After 10 minutes, I started to feel that sinking feeling in my chest. Not panic yet, just unease. I checked the chat. Her profile picture was still there. The messages were still blue. Delivered. Unread. I knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. I stood there feeling awkward, holding diapers, wondering if I had the wrong day. Then my phone buzzed. A new message, but not from her. From someone else. The message said that if I was there for the crib, I should leave. That stopped me cold. I stared at the screen, reread it, then looked around. The message came from a profile I did not recognize. No photo. No details. I asked who it was. They replied saying they lived next door. They said the woman selling the crib did not have a baby. My heart started pounding. I asked what they meant. What followed came in chunks. Messages sent fast, like they had been waiting to unload this on someone. They said this happened all the time. That she posted baby items she did not own. That she collected deposits. That buyers showed up confused and upset. That she blocked them afterward. That police had been called before, but nothing stuck because it was always small amounts. They said she did not have a baby. No crib. No nursery. No moving. Just deposits and blocks. I felt sick. My hands started shaking. I asked how they knew. They sent photos. Screenshots taken from their window. Buyers standing on the porch. Arguing on phones. Crying. Leaving empty-handed. They sent a photo of the living room through an open window. Empty. No crib. No baby stuff at all. I sat in my car staring at the house that suddenly felt fake, like a stage set with no actors. The diapers felt heavy in my lap. I messaged the seller again, asking where she was. The message stayed unread. Then her profile disappeared. Not just the listing, the whole account. Blocked. The neighbor messaged again saying they were sorry. Saying I was not the first. Saying they tried to warn people when they could. They said one woman had shown up weeks earlier crying because she needed the crib urgently and had sent a bigger deposit. She never got it back. I sat there for a long time. I did not knock again. I did not confront anyone. I just stared at the house and felt this hollow feeling spread through me. Not just because of the money, because of how calculated it all was. The baby blanket photo. The story. The hearts. I drove away slowly, like leaving a funeral I was not invited to. When I got home, I told my sister I could not get the crib. I did not tell her why at first. I just said the deal fell through. Later that night, I explained everything. She was quiet for a long time, then angry in a way that made my chest ache. I reported the profile. I sent screenshots. I attached the neighbor's messages. I do not know if it mattered. The next day, a new crib listing popped up in a nearby town. Same photos, same wording, different name, deposit requested. I recognized the baby blanket immediately. I did not message. I just stared at it, feeling this mix of anger and sadness I could not shake. Baby items are supposed to be hopeful. Tied to beginnings, she had turned them into bait. The diapers I bought sat in my trunk for days. I could not bring myself to give them to my sister at first because it felt like admitting failure. Eventually I did. She hugged me and said it was okay. That mattered more than the crib. Still, every time I scroll Marketplace and see baby stuff, I feel that tight feeling again. Wondering how many people are standing on porches right now, holding deposits and hope, realizing too late that there was never a baby on the other side of the door. I thought the weirdest part was going to be the cash. Every time someone says cash only, my brain already starts preparing for awkward counting, in that moment where you both pretend not to be nervous. I did not think cash only would turn into the reason I felt trapped in someone else's mess with no clean exit. I just wanted a small table. Something cheap to put next to my bed so my phone would stop living on the floor. The listing was simple. Nightstand, dark wood, a little scratched, still solid. The photos were taken inside an apartment with bare walls and mismatched furniture. Nothing jumped out as wrong. The price was $60. The description said cash only, pick up tonight. That urgency should have slowed me down, but it didn't. It just made me think the seller wanted it gone fast. We messaged for maybe 5 minutes total. She sent the address, third floor walk up, said to knock when I arrived. She reminded me twice to bring exact cash. No apps, no transfers, no exceptions. I told her I had it. She added a smile emoji and said, see you soon. The building was one of those older apartments with concrete stairs and buzzing lights that never fully turn on. The hallway smelled like cleaning spray mixed with old carpet. I knocked and waited, shifting my weight, listening to footsteps echo above me. She opened the door and smiled like we already knew each other. Not flirty, just overly familiar. She stepped aside and waved me in without hesitation. The apartment was small but tidy. Couch pushed against one wall, TV on but muted, a couple of plants by the window that looked like they were barely hanging on. The nightstand was right there by the couch, exactly like the photos. I checked it quickly, opened the drawer, felt the surface. It was fine. Nothing special. She stood close while I looked, closer than necessary, talking about how she was redecorating, how she kept meeting flaky buyers, how it was nice that I actually showed up. I pulled the cash out of my pocket and counted it carefully on the table. She watched my hands the whole time. When I handed it to her, she took it fast and tucked it into the pocket of her hoodie without counting it again. That felt off, but not enough to stop me. That was when the door flew open. The sound was loud enough to make me jump. The door slammed against the wall, and a guy burst in, breathing hard, eyes wild, clearly already mid-meltdown. He looked at me, then at her, then back at me like he was trying to place where I fit in a picture he did not like. He started screaming immediately. Not words at first, just noise. Then it turned into accusations. He pointed at me and said I was the third Marketplace date that week. He said this was not about furniture. He said this was how she had been doing it. Cash only. Strangers. Lies. My brain stalled. Date was not a word I expected to be part of this. My chest tightened and my hands went numb. I tried to back toward the door, but he stepped in front of it without even noticing he did it. She started yelling back, denying everything, telling him to calm down, telling him I was just there to buy furniture. He did not believe her. His face was red, jaw clenched, fists tight at his sides like he was barely holding himself together. I stood there holding the nightstand awkwardly, feeling like an idiot prop in a fight I had no context for. The cash was already gone. The door was blocked. The air felt thick and charged. He kept pacing, pointing at me, then at her, then at the money pocket. He said he knew about the other guys. He said he had followed her messages. He said he knew about the meetups in the cash. He said that she thought she was slick. The word Marketplace kept coming up like it was a code word for betrayal, like the app itself was part of the problem. She looked scared now, not angry. She kept glancing at me like she wanted me to leave, but did not know how to make that happen without making things worse. Her hands shook as she tried to explain, but nothing she said landed. I realized then how bad this could get. This was not an argument that would burn out quickly. This was something that had been building. I was just unlucky enough to walk in at the wrong time with money in my hand. I tried to speak, to say I was leaving, that I did not want the nightstand anymore, that I would just go. My voice came out weak and cracked. He snapped his head toward me and told me to stay put. Not calmly. Not kindly. Just commanded. My heart started racing. I felt that cold edge of fear creep in. The kind that makes you scan for exits automatically. The window was small. The kitchen was past them. The door was blocked. I was stuck between a stranger's relationship imploding and a pocket full of someone else's cash. He accused her of meeting men on purpose, of setting up sales just to get attention, of lying about money, of hiding things. She cried and shouted back, saying he was just selling stuff, saying he was paranoid, saying it was proof she was not doing anything wrong. That made him angrier. He lunged toward the table and knocked something over. A glass shattered on the floor. The sound was sharp and final. He kicked a chair out of the way without looking. I flinched so hard my shoulders hurt. That was the moment I stopped caring about the nightstand, about the money, about being polite. I just wanted out. I told him again I was leaving, and this time I did not wait for permission. I dropped the nightstand where I stood and moved toward the door fast. He turned like he was going to stop me, but she stepped between us without thinking, shouting at him to let me go. He hesitated, just long enough. I squeezed past them, grabbed the door handle, and yanked it open. I ran into the hallway without looking back, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. I took the stairs 2 at a time, not stopping until I hit the ground floor and burst out into the cold air. I stood there shaking, trying to breathe, listening to muffled yelling from above. My hands were empty. My pocket was empty. The nightstand was still upstairs. I did not care. I got in my car and locked the doors immediately. I sat there for a minute, staring at the building, half expecting someone to come running out after me. No one did. My phone buzzed as I drove away. A message from her, apologizing, saying she would return the money, saying he misunderstood, saying she was embarrassed. Then another message came in from a different number. Him, accusing me of knowing exactly what I was doing, accusing me of being part of it, telling me to stay away. I blocked both numbers. Later that night, I checked Marketplace. The nightstand listing was gone. Her profile was still there but stripped clean, no listings, no photos, like she was trying to disappear from her own mess. I never got my $60 back. I did not even try. It felt cursed, like touching it again would pull me back into that apartment with the broken glass and the yelling. Now whenever someone insists on cash only and pushes urgency, my chest tightens. Not because of scams. Because of people. Because you never know what kind of explosion you are walking into when you knock on a stranger's door with money in your hand. I thought this one was finally normal. After all the weird meetups, all the sketchy messages, all the times I showed up and felt like I was intruding on someone else's problem, this one felt clean. Simple. Just a bike. I wanted something to ride to work so I could stop paying for rides and pretending I liked walking everywhere. Nothing fancy. Just 2 wheels and brakes that worked. The listing popped up early in the morning while I was half awake. I read it twice to make sure I was not missing anything. Black mountain bike. Good condition, recently tuned. The photos were taken outside on a sidewalk, bike leaning against a brick wall. No weird background. No rushed description. The price was $180. Not a steal. Not a scam. Just fair. The seller responded within minutes. Friendly but not pushy. Said they could meet later that day. We agreed on a spot near a public park, close to a bike path. That already made me feel better. Public. Open. Normal people around. When I got there, the seller was already waiting. The bike looked exactly like the photos. Same scuffs on the frame. Same worn grips. Nothing hidden. I checked the brakes, spun the wheels, rode it in a small circle. It felt solid, smooth, no weird noises. The seller watched calmly, leaning against a tree, scrolling their phone. No pressure. No rushing. I paid the $180. They handed me the bike, and that was it. The whole thing took less than 10 minutes. I rode home feeling stupidly proud, like I had finally done something right. I wiped the frame down, adjusted the seat, locked it up outside of my place. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks, thinking about not having to rely on rides anymore. The next afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message request. It was from someone I did not know. No profile photo. Just a name in a single sentence asking where I got the bike. I ignored it at first. Marketplace messages from random people are usually nothing. Then another message came in, longer this time, saying the bike belonged to them, saying it had been taken, saying they could prove it. My stomach dropped. I opened the message. Attached were screenshots, lots of them. Marketplace chats. The same bike listing, same photos, same description, same price, but different buyers, different dates, dozens of conversations all ending the same way. Paid, blocked, no bike. Except I had the bike. I scrolled through the screenshots slowly, my hands starting to shake. The seller name was the same. The profile photo was the same. The park meetup was mentioned multiple times. Some buyers said the seller never showed up. Some said they did. None of them got the bike. The person messaging me said the bike had been stolen from outside their apartment weeks ago. They sent photos of it locked to a rack. Stained scratch on the frame. Same sticker residue near the seat post. There was no denying it. I went outside and checked. The scratch matched perfectly. My chest felt tight. My thoughts raced. Had I just bought stolen property? Was I next? Was someone going to show up at my door? I messaged back asking how they got my contact. They said they had been searching Marketplace nonstop, reporting the listing every time it popped up. They said the seller reused the same photos, same wording, just reposted after blocking people. They said when I bought it, it tracked it through comments and timing, guessing someone finally got it. They asked where I was, not in a threatening way, just matter of fact. I did not know what to do. I sat in my bed staring at my phone, heart pounding. I thought about all the times I had heard stories about people getting arrested for things they did not steal, about being in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong object. I told them I did not know it was stolen. I told them where I got it. I told them I still had the messages. I offered screenshots of my own. They believed me. At least it felt like they did. They said I was the first person to actually walk away with the bike. Everyone else paid deposits or got ghosted. I was the exception because I showed up early and the seller needed quick cash. That made my skin crawl. How close I was to being just another screenshot. They asked if I would be willing to give the bike back. My first reaction was defensive. I paid for it. I needed it. I did nothing wrong. But that feeling faded fast. Every time I looked at the bike, it felt heavier, wrong, like it did not belong where it was. We agreed to meet. Public place again. Daytime. I told a friend where I was going this time and why. When I rolled the bike into the parking lot, the person was already there. They looked tired, worn down, like someone who had spent weeks chasing their own stuff through a screen. When they saw the bike, their shoulders dropped in relief. They showed me more screenshots, more victims, people arguing, people begging, people getting blocked, the same seller name over and over. Dozens of reports that went nowhere fast enough. They said the seller would take a small deposit from some people, promise to hold it, then disappear. With others, they would show up, take full payment, then claim the bike was locked somewhere else and they needed to grab it, then vanish, reuse the same listing, same photos, again and again. The only reason I got it was timing. I handed the bike over. My hands shook a little as I did. They thanked me more than once, offered to pay me back. I refused. I just wanted it gone. On the drive home, I felt hollow. Not angry, not relieved, just empty, like I had brushed up against something bigger than a bad deal. Later that night, curiosity pulled me back to Marketplace. The listing was back up. Same bike, same photos, new account this time. Same price, $180. I reported it. So did the person who owned the bike. So did others. I do not know if it stayed down. For a while after that, every time my phone buzzed, I felt that same drop in my stomach. Every time I saw a bike chained up outside, I wondered if someone else was about to get a message they did not expect. I did not buy another bike for a long time. When I finally did, it was from a shop. Overpriced. Boring. Safe. Sometimes the worst part is not the scam itself, is realizing how many people were already caught in it before you, how close you came to being just another name in a screenshot folder someone keeps as proof that they were not crazy. I did not think a couch could ruin a whole afternoon, but that one did it in under a minute. I was not even couch shopping seriously. It was more of a board scroll, lying on my bed, phone slipping out of my hand every few minutes. My living room had been empty since my roommate moved out, and I kept telling myself I liked the space. I did not. It felt unfinished, like I was waiting for something to happen. When the couch listing showed up, it felt like a sign, which sounds dumb now but felt real then. The couch looked fine in the photos. Nothing special. Gray fabric, low to the ground, a little saggy in the middle but not terrible. The description said gently used and very comfortable. The price was $150, which felt fair enough to ignore the fact that the photos were taken with bad lighting and weird angles. Pickup only. Same words I had seen too many times before. The seller messaged back fast and told me to come by that afternoon. She sent an address in a part of town I did not go to often. Lots of duplexes, narrow streets, cars parked half on the sidewalk. I told my roommate where I was going even though they did not care, grabbed some cash, and drove over. The place was a ground floor unit with a small fenced patio out front. Toys scattered around. A stroller tipped over. One of those plastic slides leaning against the wall. It felt a place where things happened fast and got messy. She opened the door before I knocked, smiling too wide, like she had been waiting right there. The couch was in the middle of the living room, pushed away from the walls like it was on display. Everything else was shoved to the sides. Boxes, bags, folded blankets. The room smelled like cleaning spray layered over something sour. I noticed that immediately but did not think too hard about it. She talked a lot. About moving, about needing space, about how people kept ghosting her. I nodded and walked around the couch, checking the fabric, pressing on the cushions. It looked dry. It felt normal. Nothing obvious. She told me the best way to know if it was good was to sit down. She said you had to feel it, not just look at it. That made sense. Everyone says that about couches. I hesitated for a second, then sat. At first, nothing felt wrong. The cushions sank a little like expected. The fabric was cool. I leaned back and bounced slightly, testing it like you do. She watched me closely, hands clasped in front of her, eyes fixed on the spot where I was sitting. Then I felt it. Not wet at first, more like cold spreading. I shifted my weight and felt the cushion squish in a way it should not. My stomach dropped. I stood up fast. The back of my jeans was soaked. Not damp. Soaked. Dark patches spreading down the thighs. The smell hit a second later, sharp and unmistakable. My face went hot instantly. My heart started racing, not from fear, but from shock and humiliation. I stared at the couch, then at my clothes, then at her. She did not look surprised. If anything, she looked annoyed, like this was inconvenient. She admitted then that someone else had been there earlier. Another buyer. They sat down and had an accident. Minutes before I arrived. She said it like she was explaining a stain on a rug, not something that just happened to a stranger in her living room. She said she wiped it down but did not have time to deep clean. She said these things happen. She said the fabric usually dries fast. I could not move. My brain locked up trying to process how casual she was being. How she let me sit there knowing what was still in that cushion. How she watched me do it. I stepped back slowly, holding my jacket behind me to cover the worst of it, even though that did nothing. I felt disgusting. Exposed. Like the room was watching me. The smell was worse now that I was standing. It clung to me. To my clothes. To the air around me. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. She started talking again fast, trying to smooth it over. She said she could knock money off the price. She said she would clean it again. She said it was just one spot. I told her I was leaving. My voice sounded thin and far away, like it was coming from somewhere else. She got defensive immediately, said I was overreacting, said it was not that bad, said I had already sat on it, so what did it matter now? That part stuck with me. The idea that because something already happened to me, it could not get worse. I backed toward the door, not wanting to touch anything else. My hands were shaking. I could feel the wet fabric sticking to my skin every time I moved. I wanted to cry and throw up at the same time. As I reached the door, she said something that made my stomach twist even more. She said the other buyer had run out crying and left their phone behind. She said she hoped I would be calmer. That was it. I left without another word, pushing past the toys on the patio, not caring who saw me. I got into my car and sat there for a second, breathing hard, trying not to panic. The seat felt wrong. Everything felt contaminated. I drove straight home, windows down even though it was cold. I did not want the smell trapped in the car. I could still feel the wetness against my skin, even as it started to dry. It felt like it would never fully go away. When I got home, I went straight to the bathroom and stripped, throwing my clothes into a trash bag. Not the laundry, the trash. I stood in the shower longer than I needed to, scrubbing like that would fix something deeper than dirt. Later, after I had calmed down a little, anger kicked in. Not just at her, but at myself, for trusting a stranger, for sitting down, for ignoring that smell when I walked in. I checked Marketplace out of curiosity. The couch listing was still up. Same photos. Same description. Nothing about accidents. Nothing about needing cleaning. Just gently used and very comfortable. I reported it. I do not know if anything happened. The listing stayed up for at least another day. Maybe someone else went to see it. Maybe someone else sat down. The worst part was not even the couch. It was the way she watched me, the way she let it happen, the way she treated it like a minor inconvenience instead of something humiliating and wrong. For days after, I felt weird sitting anywhere that was not my bed, chairs, benches, even my car seat. I kept checking, kept shifting, kept imagining that cold spreading feeling. I never bought a couch. My living room stayed empty for a long time after that. I told people I liked the space. I told people I was waiting for the right one. The truth was I did not want to sit on anything that did not belong to me. Sometimes Marketplace is just cheap furniture and awkward meetups. Sometimes it is being invited into someone else's mess and finding out too late that you are the one who has to carry it out with you. I did not wake up thinking I was about to walk into someone else's family collapse. I just wanted a PlayStation. My old one sounded like it was trying to lift off every time I turned it on, and half my games froze at the loading screen. Marketplace had become my nightly routine, read listings while half asleep, telling myself I was being smart by saving money. That night, the listing felt normal. Too normal. PlayStation in good condition, controller included, cords included, no box. Price was $280. Not cheap enough to feel stolen, not high enough to scare people off. The seller's profile looked fine. A few old photos, some posts about sports, nothing weird. We messaged back and forth and he seemed relaxed, maybe even too relaxed. Lots of saying no problem, easy pickup, whenever works. The address was a quiet residential street not far from me. Pickup only, of course. Everything was always pickup only. I told my roommate where I was going, grabbed the cash, and headed out just before dinner. The sky was that dull gray that makes everything look flatter than it is. I parked in front of a small house with a neat lawn and a minivan in the driveway. Wind chimes clicked softly on the porch. It felt safe in a boring way. I knocked and waited. Footsteps came fast from inside. The door opened, but it was not the seller. It was his mom. I did not know it was his mom at first, but the way she looked at me made it obvious something was already wrong. Not confused, not surprised, angry, tired, like she had been waiting for someone and I was close enough. She looked me up and down and asked why I was there. I said I was picking up a PlayStation. Her mouth tightened immediately. She stepped back and told me to come inside. That was the first moment I should have left. The house smelled like strong cleaner, the kind used after arguments. Everything was tidy but tense, like it had been aggressively organized. She led me into the living room where the PlayStation was sitting on the coffee table exactly like the listing photo. Cords wrapped neatly, controller placed just so. It was real. That almost made it worse. She stood between me and the door and told me that her son was not home. She said he would not be handling the sale. She said she would. I asked if that was okay with him. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. She told me he had no choice. Then she asked how much I was paying. I told her $280. She nodded like she already knew that number. Then she said she would be taking the money instead. That alone was enough to make me uneasy. I asked why. She did not answer right away. She walked to the window, peeked through the blinds, then turned back to me. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her voice stayed steady. She told me her son had been using Marketplace to fund another family. The words did not make sense at first. My brain tried to rearrange them into something less heavy, like maybe she meant a girlfriend, or a kid, or some exaggeration out of anger. But she kept going, explaining in detail I did not ask for and could not escape. He had another woman, another place. Kids, plural, she found out through bank statements and Marketplace messages popping up on his phone. Cash sales, constant meetups, things disappearing from the house. Money that should not have been there and money that should have been. The PlayStation was one of many things he had sold. Not his things. Household things. Gifts. Shared property. She said she had been tracking it quietly, watching listings appear and disappear, watching him leave with empty hands and come back with excuses. She told me the money was going to diapers, rent, groceries for people she had never met. I stood there holding the cash in my pocket, feeling that the floor had dropped out under me. I did not know where to look. The PlayStation sat there innocent and plastic and suddenly very heavy with meaning. She told me she deserved the money, that she had been living in the same house for decades and would not be drained dry by secrets and lies. She said if I wanted the PlayStation, I would pay her. I asked if her son knew she was doing this. She smiled in a way that made my stomach twist and said he would find out soon enough. Before I could respond, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Her face changed instantly. Not panic. Focus. She moved fast then, picking up the PlayStation and shoving it into my arms. She told me to decide quickly. Pay her and leave through the back door, or hand it back and wait. I could hear keys at the front door, a voice, his voice, matching the one from the messages in my head. My heart started pounding. I did not want to be there when he walked in. I did not want to be part of whatever explosion was about to happen. I also did not want to hand over money to someone who was clearly spiraling, even if her story sounded real. I handed the PlayStation back to her. The front door opened. Footsteps entered the house. I heard him say her name. She did not respond. She stared at me for a long second, then told me to leave out the back anyway. I did not argue. I walked through the kitchen, past a table covered in unopened mail, and out a sliding door into the backyard. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I heard voices rising behind me as I stepped onto the grass. Not words I could understand, just tone. Anger. Shock. I did not run, but I walked fast. I cut through the yard, hopped a low fence, and ended up on the next street over. I kept walking until I reached my car, which thankfully was still where I left it. As I pulled away, I saw the seller standing on the porch, phone in hand, looking around like he had lost something important. Not the PlayStation. Something else. My phone buzzed as soon as I got home. A message from him asking where I went, saying his mom was acting crazy, saying I should come back and finish the deal. Another message came in seconds later. Same account, different tone. Longer, accusing me of helping steal from him, of being part of the setup. Then another message, from his mom's number. She must have gotten it from his phone. She thanked me for not paying him. She said she'd go to find another console somewhere else. I blocked both numbers. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I checked Marketplace. The PlayStation listing was gone. His profile was still there but scrubbed clean, no active listings, no photos. A few days later, I saw a new listing in a nearby town. PlayStation. Similar description. Different photos. Different account. Price was higher. $320. I did not click it. I still think about that house sometimes. How normal it looked. How close I came to handing over money that would have disappeared into a life I was never supposed to know about. I wanted a console and walked into a family fracture instead. Some listings are not just selling objects. They are selling pieces of something already breaking. I still think about how many times he asked me that question before I noticed it was weird. Not once or twice. Over and over, spaced out just enough to feel casual. Was I alone? Coming by myself. Nobody else in the car. I answered yes every time without thinking, because I usually do things alone and because it did not seem important. It only felt important later, when the gate closed behind me and the sound echoed in a way that made my stomach drop. The listing itself was nothing special. Just a metal shelving unit. Garage type. Tall, gray, a little rusty. I needed something cheap to organize boxes because my room was starting to look like a storage closet. The price was $45. The photo showed it leaned against a fence in a backyard. The description said pickup only and cash only. Normal stuff. The seller messaged fast and kept the conversation short. No emojis, no extra info, just logistics. Address, time, reminders, then the question again, alone, right? I said yes and did not think about it. The address was on the far side of town, past neighborhoods that usually drive through. Once it turned onto a street, everything felt quieter. Not abandoned, just still. Houses spaced farther apart. Chain-link fences. Older cars parked in yards that had not been mowed in a while. I parked in front of a tall metal gate with a small handwritten sign taped to it that said deliveries and back. I messaged that I was there. A minute later, the gate buzzed and swung open inward. I pulled my car through and parked where he pointed from the yard. The gate closed behind me with a heavy clank that sounded final. That was when my body started reacting before my brain did. Heart rate up, palms sweaty. That low alert feeling you get when something changes suddenly and you do not know why. The yard was bigger than it looked from the street, enclosed by fencing on all sides. There were sheds, stacked pallets, random tools leaned against walls. The shelving unit was exactly where it was in the photo, propped against the side of the house. The seller stood near it, arms crossed, watching me walk over. He looked normal, older than me, not threatening in an obvious way, just very focused. His eyes kept flicking toward the gate, then back to me. He asked again if I was alone, this time in person. I said yes, trying to sound casual even though my chest felt tight. That was when he said it was good, that fewer people meant less confusion for the neighbors. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Not loud, not joking, just flat, like it was a fact he had already considered. I laughed awkwardly and bent down to check the shelf, pretending that was normal. The metal was cold under my hands. Heavy, sturdy. I could lift it, but it would be awkward. I told myself I could just grab it and leave. 5 minutes, no problem. I reached into my pocket for the cash. He did not take it right away. Instead, he stepped closer and asked where I was putting it, what I planned to use it for, how long I had been living at my place. Normal questions, but asked too carefully, like he was filling in blanks on a form only he could see. I answered vaguely, kept my eyes on the shelf. My phone buzzed in my pocket with a message from a friend, and I almost felt relief from that tiny interruption. Then I heard the lock. Not the gate closing. It was already closed. This was different. A click followed by a sliding metal sound. I turned around slowly and saw him at the gate, one hand on the latch, the other holding a small padlock. He snapped it shut without rushing, then turned back to me. The yard felt smaller instantly. He said something then that I will not repeat exactly, but it was clear enough. The neighbors would not get mixed up if it was just me. No witnesses. No questions. The words hit me like cold water. My mouth went dry and my hands started shaking. I backed away instinctively until I felt the shelf press against my legs. My brain scrambled for options. The gate was locked. The fence was high. The house door behind him was closed. No one else in sight. No sounds from nearby yards. I tried to keep my voice steady and told him I needed to leave. I said I forgot something. I said my phone was ringing. None of it mattered. He did not move out of the way. He just watched me, head tilted slightly like he was studying a reaction. Time stretched. Every second felt loud in my head. I noticed details I did not want to notice. The way the ground dipped near the fence. The way the tools were arranged too neatly. The way his hands were empty but relaxed, like he did not need to rush. My phone buzzed again. I took it out, hands trembling, and held it up like proof that someone was expecting me. I told him someone knew where I was. I told him my location was shared. I do not know if that was true. I just needed him to believe it might be. Something shifted in his face. Not fear. Annoyance. Like I had added an extra step to a plan he wanted simple. He looked toward the house, then toward the gate, then back at me. I saw a night opening then, not a clear one, just a crack. I dropped the cash on the ground and said I was leaving without the shelf. I stepped toward the gate slowly, not turning my back on him. My heart was pounding so hard I felt dizzy. He hesitated just long enough. I lunged. I ran straight at the gate, grabbing the chain and yanking as hard as I could. The lock held, but the chain rattled loud enough to echo. I screamed. Not words, just sound, loud and raw and ugly. That did it. He cursed and rushed forward, not toward me, but toward the house. He shouted something I could not hear over my own breathing. The back door slammed open and someone else yelled from inside, a voice I had not heard before. I did not wait to understand. I climbed. The fence scraped my hands and tore my jeans, but I did not feel it. I got over and dropped hard on the other side, landing awkwardly but upright. I ran without looking back, straight down the street, heart trying to punch out of my chest. I did not stop until I reached my car, which thankfully was parked just outside the fence line where I had left it unlocked. I jumped in, slammed the door, and drove off shaking so bad I almost stalled. I circled the block twice before heading home, checking mirrors, expecting to see his car behind me. It never appeared. When I got home, I locked every door and sat on my bed shaking for a long time. My phone was full of missed notifications I had not noticed. I told my friend what happened in broken messages. It did not make sense until I read them back later. I reported the listing. I reported the profile. I even drove past the street later with someone else in the car. The gate was closed. The sign was gone. The listing disappeared that same night. Nothing official ever came of it. No follow-up. No message. Just silence. Sometimes when I see listings that ask too many questions about being alone, I think about that lock clicking shut. About how fast normal can turn into something else. About how quiet that yard was before it wasn't. I thought buying a car would be boring. Stressful maybe, but boring in the normal adult way. Paperwork. Checking tires. Pretending you know what you are looking at while nodding a lot. I had been scrolling Facebook Marketplace for weeks, rent listings late at night, saving a few, backing out of most. Then this one showed up on a Tuesday morning when I was half awake and already late for class. Older sedan, clean title, low miles for the year. The photos were taken in a parking lot with bad lighting, but the car looked solid. The price was $3,400. Not cheap enough to scream scam, not expensive enough to scare me off. The seller replied fast and was overly friendly in a way that felt forced. Lots of thumbs up reactions, lots of saying no issues at all. I asked about the title. It said it was clean and ready. I asked about meeting in daylight. They agreed but insisted on a specific lot near an abandoned strip mall. They said it was easier for them. I told myself I could leave if anything felt wrong. The day of the meetup, my stomach felt tight for no reason. Not nerves exactly, more like my body knew something my brain had not caught up to yet. I drove out there with my cousin following behind me just in case. We parked a little distance away so it would not be obvious. The lot was mostly empty, cracked pavement. Weeds growing through faded lines. One closed grocery store with papered windows. The seller was already there, leaning against the car with the hood popped like they were showing it off to no one. They waved when they saw me. Up close, the car looked decent. No obvious dents. Interior smelled like cheap air freshener, but nothing awful. The seller talked fast, pointing out features, talking about how reliable it was, how they just needed something bigger. Their hands were shaking slightly, but I figured some people are just nervous around money. I started going through my usual checklist: tires, lights, fluids. Then I opened the driver door and checked the VIN on the dash. I took a picture of it with my phone, just like I had been told to do by literally everyone. I asked to see the title to match it. The seller hesitated, just a second too long. Then they handed me a folded piece of paper. The title looked real at first glance. Same year, same model. But when I checked the VIN printed on it, my stomach dropped. It did not match. Not a small typo. Not one number off. Completely different sequence, like it belonged to another car entirely. I felt that cold rush in my chest that hits when you realize you are suddenly in a situation you did not plan for. I looked up at the seller slowly. Their face had gone pale. Sweat beaded on their forehead, even though it was not hot out. I pointed out the mismatch, calmly, not accusing, just stating it. I expected excuses, confusion, maybe a story. What I did not expect was the seller to panic instantly. Their breathing went fast and shallow. Their eyes darted around the lot like they were looking for exits. Their hands started shaking harder. They grabbed the title back and tried to fold it again, but their fingers would not cooperate. I said one word: police. Everything fell apart after that. The seller made a sound I can only describe as a whimper mixed with a gasp. Their face twisted in a way that did not look human for a second. Then the smell hit. It was sudden and unmistakable, like fear had flipped a switch. They had pooped themselves. There was no subtle way to say it. It was obvious. Dark spreading stain. Sharp smell that cut through the air freshener instantly. I froze, shocked more by how fast everything escalated than by the act itself. The seller looked down, realized what happened, and completely lost it. They started backing away, muttering, hands waving uselessly in front of them like they were trying to erase the moment. Then they turned and ran. Not toward a car, not toward a street, just away. Straight across the lot toward the clothes store, slipping a little as they went. They were running in jeans that were now very obviously ruined, leaving a trail of embarrassment behind them. My cousin got out of their car, eyes wide, asking what just happened. I could not even answer right away. I was still holding the title, staring at the car that suddenly felt radioactive. The seller did not make it far. They tripped near the curb and went down hard, scrambling back up like a scared animal. A few people from nearby stores had started watching. Phones out. Whispers spreading. I pulled my phone out with shaking hands and called the police for real this time. I explained quickly. Mismatched VIN. Seller ran. Something very wrong. They told me to stay where I was. The seller disappeared behind the building. I did not chase. I did not move closer to the car. I just stood there, heart pounding, trying to process how a normal car purchase turned into this. Police arrived fast, faster than I expected. 2 cars pulled in with lights on. Officers got out and immediately noticed the car, the open hood, the title in my hand. They separated us and started asking questions. I explained everything from the beginning: the listing, the messages, the VIN check, the panic, the running, the smell. I felt ridiculous saying it out loud, but they did not laugh. Not even a little. One of them nodded slowly like it fit a pattern. They ran the VIN on the dash. Stolen. Reported months ago from another state. Plates did not belong to it either. The title was fake. The seller had likely been flipping stolen cars and hoping buyers would not check carefully. They searched the area but did not find the seller. Someone matching the description had been seen running through back lots and popping fences, but they got away. The officers told me it was probably not their first time and would not be their last. They took the car away on a flatbed. Watching it get loaded felt surreal, like the whole thing was being erased in front of me. The lot went quiet again once they left, like nothing had happened. My cousin and I stood there for a while after, not really talking. The smell still hung in the air faintly. The spot where the seller stood was marked by a dark stain on the pavement that would probably be there for a long time. Later that day, I checked Marketplace out of curiosity. The listing was gone. The profile was gone too, like they had never existed. I never bought a car that day. It took me weeks to even open Marketplace again. Now, every time I check a VIN, I remember how fast fear can turn someone into a mess of bad decisions and worse outcomes. Some people lie smoothly. Some people crumble the second you say the wrong word. That seller did not even make it to the excuse part. I already felt stupid agreeing to go see the fridge, but my kitchen was empty and my patience was gone. I had been lit without a real fridge for almost 2 weeks, surviving on takeout and a mini cooler that leaked all over the floor. Every decent listing disappeared before I could even message. Then this one showed up late at night, like it had been waiting for me to be desperate enough. Standard white fridge, older model, scratched but clean. The description said works most of the time. That line should have made me close the app. Instead, I told myself most of the time was better than nothing. The price was $160, cheap enough to ignore the weird wording. The seller answered fast and sent an address on the edge of town where the houses got farther apart and the streetlights stopped working halfway down the road. Pickup only, of course. Everything was always pickup only. I borrowed a friend's truck and drove out the next afternoon, telling myself I could always say no once I saw it. The house was a single-story place with dark siding and an overgrown yard. No decorations. No welcome mat. The driveway was cracked and uneven, weeds pushing through like they had won. The fridge was already sitting in the garage, unplugged, door taped shut with yellow tape that looked reused. That tape bothered me right away. Not new. Stretched, like it had been pulled off and stuck back on more than once. The seller stood near the garage door, arms folded, watching me approach. She looked exhausted in a deep way. Not sleepy, but worn down. Like something heavy had been sitting on her chest for a long time. She did not smile. She just nodded and stepped aside so I could see the fridge better. Up close, it smelled faintly wrong. Not strong enough to immediately identify, just off. Like old water mixed with something sour. I opened the door and checked inside. It looked clean. Shelves wiped down. No stains. Freezer empty. I knocked on the sides, checked the seals. All the stuff you do to feel smart. She watched me the whole time without saying much. I asked about the most of the time comment. She shrugged and said it cooled fine when it wanted to. Sometimes it took a bit to kick on. Nothing major. She said we could plug it in and check if I wanted. I said yes, even though a part of me wanted to get back in the truck and leave. There was an extension cord already coiled near the wall. That also stood out, like this test had been done before. She plugged it in and we waited. The fridge hummed softly, then louder, then settled into a low vibration. The interior light flicked on. So far so good. Then it started leaking. At first, it was just a slow drip from underneath, pooling on the garage floor. I assumed it was condensation. Old fridges do that. But the liquid was darker than water. Cloudy, thick, and the smell hit all at once like someone had opened a door in my head. It was foul. Not trash. Not spoiled food. Something heavier. Something that made my stomach flip instantly. I stepped back without thinking. The seller did not. She stared at the puddle like she had been waiting for it to happen. Her shoulders sagged, and she rubbed her face with both hands. The drip turned into a thin stream, spreading across the concrete toward my shoes. I could see small bits in it. Not solid pieces, just enough texture to make it worse. I asked what that was. My voice sounded wrong in my own ears. She exhaled hard and said it was probably residue. Then she stopped herself and shook her head. The words changed before they fully came out. She said she needed to be honest. What she said next did not land all at once. It came in pieces, like my brain refused to take it whole. There had been a blackout, a bad one, summer heat, days without power. Someone had died. Not in the house, somewhere else. Family. No immediate arrangements, nowhere to put them. The fridge had been empty then. Cold for a while. It seemed like the only option at the time. She said it fast, like ripping off a bandage that had been stuck too long. Her eyes stayed on the floor the entire time. She did not look at me once. I felt like the garage tilted. The smell suddenly made sense in the worst way possible. The tape. The extension cord. The most of the time comment. My chest felt tight, and my mouth went dry. I backed up again, farther this time, until my back hit the truck. The puddle kept spreading. The fridge hummed like nothing was wrong. She said she had cleaned it, scrubbed everything, replaced parts. But some things seep in. Some things do not fully come out. She said it worked fine after, just sometimes the smell came back when it warmed up, especially if it had been unplugged for a while. I stared at the fridge, at the white door that looked exactly like every other fridge I had ever owned. It felt wrong that something so normal could hold something like that inside and still be considered for sale. My hands were shaking. I could feel it all the way up my arms. I told her I could not take it. I said it quickly, like if I stayed any longer I might freeze in place. She nodded like she expected that answer. She said she understood. She reached for the extension cord to unplug it again. The moment the fridge shut off, the hum died and the garage went quiet. The smell lingered, heavier now that I knew what it was tied to. I turned away and dry heaved onto the driveway, barely missing my shoes. She did not react. She just stood there, arms hanging at her sides, like she had already seen this reaction before. Maybe from other buyers, maybe from herself. I got in the truck without another word and locked the doors, even though that made no sense. My heart was racing like I had run miles. I sat there for a minute, staring at the garage, half expecting someone else to come out. No one did. As I pulled away, I saw her through the rearview mirror, standing alone in the driveway, the garage door still open, the fridge sitting there unplugged and leaking onto the floor. I drove straight home and threw away my clothes. Not washed, thrown away. I stood in the shower longer than necessary, trying to get the smell out of my head more than my skin. That night, I could not eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured the inside of that fridge, imagined it cold and dark and quiet during the blackout. Imagined the door taped shut. Imagined the power coming back on. I checked Marketplace out of habit the next day. The fridge listing was still up. Same photos. Same description. Works most of the time. Price dropped to $120. I reported it and do not know if anything happened after that. The listing disappeared a few days later. Maybe it sold. Maybe it got taken down. I do not want to know. I bought a brand new fridge a week later. Expensive. Delivered. Wrapped in plastic. When they plugged it in, I still flinched at the sound. Sometimes appliances are just appliances. Sometimes they are containers for things that should never be stored, never shared, never passed on to someone else who just wanted cold food and did not know what most of the time really meant. I did not realize how quiet a room could get until that moment. Not peaceful quiet, but the kind that feels loaded, like something is about to step out of it. All I wanted was a mirror, a cheap one, full length so I could stop using my phone camera to check if my outfit looked dumb before leaving the house. I had been using the bathroom mirror for weeks, and it cut off at my chest, which somehow made everything worse. The listing popped up late at night. Tall mirror, wood frame, slightly scratched but solid. The photo showed it leaning against a wall in what looked like a spare room. Beige carpet. White walls. No personal stuff. The price was $40. Pickup only. That phrase again. I did not even hesitate. I messaged and got a response faster than expected. The seller sent an address and said they would be home, but might need a minute because they had stomach issues. I remember thinking that was a weird thing to mention to a stranger, but I brushed it off. People overshare online all the time. I told a friend where I was going and drove over just before sunset. The house was in a quiet subdivision with identical layouts and slightly different paint colors. The kind of place where you could easily walk into the wrong driveway and not notice. The seller's house looked normal. Lights on inside. Porch clean. No cars in the driveway, though, which stood out. I knocked. No answer. A minute later, my phone buzzed. The seller said to come in and wait. Door unlocked. They were in the bathroom and would be right back. That should have been the moment I left. Instead, I turned the knob. Inside, the house felt lived in but paused. Shoes by the door. A jacket on a chair. Tee off but still warm when I brushed past it. The mirror was visible right away, leaned against the far wall of the living room like the listing photo. Same scratches, same frame. I walked over slowly. Mirrors always mess with me a little. Not in a spooky way, just the way they make you hyper-aware of yourself. I stood in front of it and adjusted my hoodie, checking my reflection, thinking about whether it would fit in my car. That was when I saw movement behind me. Not beside me. Not in the room itself. In the mirror. Just a shape at first, darker than the background. My brain tried to explain it away. Shadow. Trick of light. My own movement delayed, but then it moved again. Clearer this time. A shoulder. Part of a head. There was someone standing behind me. I did not turn around right away. I do not know why. Maybe fear. Maybe disbelief. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stared straight into the mirror, watching the reflection instead of the room. The man was standing near the hallway, half hidden by the corner. He was still, watching me. I felt my legs go weak. Every instinct told me to spin around, to confront, to run, to do something. Instead, I stayed frozen, pretending I had not noticed. I adjusted my sleeve slowly, eyes never leaving the glass. The man shifted his weight. I could see more of him now. Older than me. Dark jacket. Hands tucked into his pockets. His face looked tense, but not aggressive. More like he was waiting. My thoughts raced. Seller, roommate, neighbor, intruder. None of the options felt good. The house was too quiet. No footsteps. No sounds from a bathroom. No flushing. Nothing. Finally, I turned. The man was exactly where the reflection showed him. He did not move when I looked at him. His eyes widened slightly, like he was surprised I could see him. Then his shoulders dropped, and the tension in his face shifted into something else. Embarrassment, maybe. Relief. He raised his hands a little, palms out, like he wanted to show he was not a threat. His mouth moved like he was about to say something, then he stopped himself. We just stood there, staring at each other in someone else's house. My brain finally caught up enough to understand the situation was weird, but not immediately violent. That did not make it better. It just changed the flavor of the fear. I stepped back toward the door slowly. He did not follow. He stayed where he was near the hallway, glancing between me and the mirror like it was part of the problem. After a long few seconds, he moved first. He stepped into the living room fully so I could see him clearly. He looked tired, not dangerous, holding his phone tightly in one hand. The screen was lit with a marketplace chat. The same mirror listing, same photo, same price. It hit me all at once. He was another buyer. He gestured toward the hallway, then pointed at his stomach, then toward the bathroom door, miming waiting. I understood without words. The seller had told him the same thing. To come in, to wait, bathroom. My heart was still racing, but the fear shifted into something colder. Confusion mixed with anger. Why would a seller invite multiple strangers into their house and leave them alone together without warning? Why would anyone think that was okay? We stood there in silence, two people caught in the same awkward trap. The mirror leaned between us, reflecting both our faces now. I noticed how distorted the edges made everything look slightly off, like the room was bending. Minutes passed, too many. No sound from the bathroom, no movement. The house stayed quiet except for the hum of the fridge. The man checked his phone and frowned. I checked mine. No new messages. I sent one asking if they were coming back. No response. The longer it went on, the worse it felt. Not scary in a loud way. Unsettling in a slow way, like realizing you were left somewhere on purpose. I noticed then that the bathroom door was closed, but the light underneath was off. That detail crawled into my head and would not leave. If someone was inside, there should be light. There should be noise. There was nothing. The man noticed it too. I could tell by the way his eyes went to the floor, then back to the door. We shared a look that said the same thing without needing words. This was wrong. We both moved at the same time. Not running, just deciding, He backed toward the front door. I followed. Neither of us took our eyes off the hallway until we were almost outside. The door opened easily. Fresh air hit my face like a reset. I stepped out onto the porch, heart pounding, and he followed. We stood there for a second, breathing hard, the quiet street suddenly feeling loud with normal sounds. As soon as we were both outside, the front door closed behind us. Not slammed, just closed. We stared at it. I waited for it to open again, for the seller to appear. Nothing happened. The lights inside stayed on. The house stayed still. The man shook his head slowly, then walked down the porch steps without looking back. I followed, not wanting to be alone there. We went to our separate cars parked on opposite sides of the street. Before getting in, I looked back one last time. The mirror was still visible through the living room window, leaning in the same spot, reflecting an empty room. Later that night, the seller finally messaged, said sorry about the wait, stomach issues, asked if I was still interested. I blocked them. The listing disappeared the next morning. I checked out of curiosity. Gone. Profile still there but scrubbed clean. I never bought a mirror. I still use my phone camera. Sometimes when the screen reflects just right, I think about that moment of seeing someone before I was supposed to, about how close I was to turning around too late. I already had a bad feeling before I even put my shoes on. Not the dramatic kind, just that low buzzing doubt that sits in your chest when something feels off, but you keep going anyway. I had been scrolling Facebook Marketplace half awake, thumb moving on its own, when the listing popped up. Gaming console bundle. Console, 2 controllers, a few games. Nothing rare, just stuff I wanted without paying store prices. The photos were taken inside a car, items spread across the backseat. The price was $220. Fair. Not crazy cheap. Just enough to make sense. I messaged and the seller responded almost instantly. They were short, direct, and very specific about the meetup spot. Walmart parking lot. Same one across town near the highway. They said they always meet there. Safer that way. Public. Cameras. I told myself that was reasonable. Everyone says that. Still, something about how firm they were stuck with me. No flexibility. No alternate time. No other place. Just that Walmart, that section of the lot, near the garden center entrance. I agreed anyway because I wanted the console, and because I did not want to sound weird backing out over nothing. The drive over felt longer than it should have. The sun was starting to go down, turning everything that washed out orange color that makes shadows stretch too far. The Walmart lot was already busy. Cars circling, people loading groceries, kids running around. It looked normal, too normal. I parked where they told me to. Far edge of the lot, not near the doors, but not totally isolated either. Shopping carts rattled by in the wind. I checked my phone. The seller said they were there already. I looked around but did not see anyone obvious. A few minutes later, a car pulled up next to me, dark setting, windows tinted just enough to be annoying. The seller got out holding a backpack. Not the console, just the bag. That was the second thing that made my stomach tighten. They leaned against their car casually, like this was something they did every day. They opened the backpack and showed me the console inside, still wrapped in a towel. Controllers underneath. Games stacked at the bottom. Everything looked real. Not sealed, but clean. I checked the serial number on the console, made sure it powered on using a portable charger they had. It worked. No account lock. No issues. I started to relax a little. I handed over the cash. They counted it slowly, eyes flicking up and around the lot between bills. I noticed then that they kept glancing toward the Walmart entrance, then toward the far end near the gas station. Not like someone watching for danger, more like someone waiting for a signal. I was reaching for the backpack when everything changed. It started with sirens, but not loud at first. Just that distant wail that makes you look up without knowing why. Then cars moved strangely. Not driving past, but angling in. Locking lanes. Headlights snapping on. Doors opening fast. Suddenly, the lot was full of flashing lights. Police vehicles rolled in from multiple sides like they had rehearsed it. Unmarked cars, too. People froze mid-step. Shopping carts abandoned. Someone screamed. Not from fear, just surprise. The seller stiffened beside me, eyes wide, breath catching. Officers jumped out, shouting commands I could not fully process because my heart was pounding too hard. Hands went up around us. Not just us. 3 other cars nearby. Other people holding bags, phones, backpacks, all frozen in place. I dropped the backpack without realizing it. It hit the ground and tipped over, spilling one controller onto the pavement. My hands went up automatically. My brain lagged behind my body. The seller took a step back like they were thinking about running, then stopped. Officers moved in fast. Cuffs came out. People were pulled aside one by one. Someone was crying near a minivan. A guy in a hoodie kept repeating that he was just there to buy headphones. I stood there shaking, staring at the ground, trying to understand how buying a console turned into this. An officer came up to me and told me to stay where I was. I nodded too much. My jaw hurt from clenching. They separated everyone. Buyers on one side, sellers on another. Bags lined up on the ground. Items photographed. Serial numbers checked. Radios crackling nonstop. The Walmart entrance was blocked now. Shoppers stuck inside watching through the glass. One officer asked me what I was there for. I told them. Console. Marketplace. Showed them the messages. They scrolled through slowly, dotting like it fit a pattern. They asked if I knew the spot was flagged. I said no. They exchanged a look with another officer. Apparently that section of the lot was known for stolen goods meetups. Not officially marked, but watched. Sellers used it because it felt safe. Public, but chaotic. Buyers came and went. Hard to track. Until it wasn't. The console was taken from the ground and tagged. The seller was cuffed fully now. Head down, shoulders tight. I noticed then how young they actually looked. Tired eyes. Jaw clenched. Not some mastermind. Just someone playing a risky game and losing. Time stretched. I sat on the curt with a few other buyers, all was quiet, staring at nothing. Some people argued their case louder than others. One guy kept insisting he had bought stuff there before with no problem. That did not help him. My phone buzzed with messages from friends asking where I was. I did not answer. I felt exposed sitting there under flashing lights like I had done something wrong even though I hadn't. Eventually, an officer came back and told me I was free to go. No charges. No record. But the console was not coming with me. It was evidence now. I nodded, stood up slowly, legs stiff like I had been sitting for hours. As I walked back to my car, I saw more people being loaded into police vehicles. Not everyone. Some sellers. Some runners. Some buyers who were not as lucky. The lot looked like a movie set gone wrong. Lights everywhere. People whispering. Carts abandoned. I got in my car and just sat there, hands on the wheel, engine off. My heart took a long time to slow down. I watched the officers work until I could not handle it anymore and drove away. On the drive home, my phone buzzed again. A message from the seller. Sent before they were cuffed. It just said running late. Traffic. I did not respond. Later that night, I looked up the area out of curiosity. Forum posts. Local comments. People warning about that Walmart. About meetups gone wrong. About police watching quietly for weeks before swooping in. The listing was gone that morning. The seller's profile, too. The money was gone. The console was gone. All I had left was that memory of standing in a parking lot with my hands in the air while sirens bounced off a giant yellow building. Now whenever someone says meet at Walmart, I hesitate. I suggest other places. Sometimes I just stop replying. Some parking lots are not neutral ground. Some are traps that look normal until the lights turn on. I did not think a mattress could feel urgent, but mine somehow did. Springs poking through, fabric torn. Every night feeling like I was sinking into a mistake. I had been putting off replacing it because new mattresses cost too much and delivery always turns into a mess. One night, half asleep and annoyed, I opened Facebook Marketplace and typed mattress. Not even fancy, just mattress. The listing I clicked on felt normal. Used but clean. Barely a year old. Memory foam with a zip cover. Pickup only. The photos were taken in what looked like a storage room. Concrete floor, white walls, nothing personal in frame. The price was $90. Cheap enough to be suspicious, but not so cheap it screamed problem. I messaged without overthinking it. The seller replied quick and short, said they were moving and needed it gone, sent an address on the other side of town near an industrial area with warehouses and random apartments squeezed between them. I borrowed a friend's van, threw some straps in the back, and headed out. The place was a ground floor unit behind a bigger building. No signs, no decorations, just a metal door and a number that matched the address. The seller was already outside waiting, leaning against the wall like they did not want to go back in. They did not invite me inside. They just rolled the mattress out from the doorway like it was something to get rid of fast. Up close, it looked fine. Heavy but clean. No stains. No smell. I pressed on it with my hand and it bounced back like it should. The seller watched me the whole time but did not rush me. That should have been reassuring. Instead, it made me feel like I was being checked. I paid the $90, loaded it into the van, and left. The whole interaction took maybe 5 minutes. No names, no extra messages. When I checked later, the listing was gone. Getting the mattress up to my room was a nightmare. Stairs too narrow, corners too tight, a lot of swearing under my breath. By the time it was finally on my bed frame, I was exhausted. I ripped off the old mattress, dragged it to the curb, and collapsed onto the new one fully dressed just to feel it. It felt good. Too good maybe. Softer than expected. Like it hugged back a little. I remember thinking that I should have done this sooner. That night, I slept deeper than I had in weeks. No tossing. No waking up sore. Just heavy sleep. When I woke up, I felt off but could not place why. My room felt the same. Nothing looked moved. Still, there was that feeling like when you forget something important but cannot remember what it was. Later that day, while changing sheets, I noticed the zipper on the mattress cover. It ran almost the full length around the side. I had not noticed it before. Curiosity got the better of me. I unzipped it a little to check the foam inside. That was when I felt the bump. Not a lump like foam clumping, something solid, rectangular. I pressed around it and felt wires. My stomach dropped so fast it made me dizzy. I unzipped the cover fully and peeled it back. Inside the foam, sewn between layers, was a small black device, about the size of a deck of cards. A tiny lens on one side, a blinking light that stopped as soon as it hit the air. I froze. My hands started shaking so bad I had to sit down. I stared at it trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I pulled it free and saw another one farther down, then another, 3 total, all sewn in carefully like they were meant to stay hidden. Not taped, not loose, stitched. I did not scream. I did not run. My brain went blank in a quiet way. I unplugged the mattress from my headboard charger out of habit, even though that made no sense. Then I backed away from the bed like it might move. I grabbed my phone and took pictures. I do not know why. Proof maybe. Then I checked the devices closer. Tiny memory card slots. Ports. One of them felt warm. That was when my phone buzzed. A message request from the seller. It was short, casual, asking how I slept. No emojis, no greeting, just that. I felt sick. My skin crawled like bugs were under it. The room suddenly felt too small, too quiet. I checked my door, locked. Windows, closed. Nothing else out of place. I did not respond. I wrapped the mattress cover back up as best I could, shoved the whole thing into a corner, and dragged a chair against my bedroom door. I barely slept that night. Every sound outside made my heart race. Every buzz from my phone made me jump. The next morning, I took the devices out again and looked closer. One had a tiny serial number scratched off. Another had a sticker from some electronics shop I did not recognize. I searched the brand. Sheeps by Camera Kits. Sold online in bulk. I went back to the seller's profile. It was still there. Same name. No photo. Dozens of past listings marked sold. Furniture. Rugs. Bed frames. Nightstands. All pickup only. All cheap. I scrolled through comments on older posts. People thanking them. People saying easy pickup. Nothing weird. That made it worse. I reported the profile. I reported the message. I did not get an immediate response. I did not wait. I wrapped the mattress in trash bags, taped it up, and dragged it back down the stairs by myself. Every step felt like it took forever. I dumped it in the back of the van and drove straight to a police station. Explaining it out loud felt unreal, like I was telling someone else's story. They took the devices. They took my phone to copy the messages. They asked where I picked it up. When I showed them the address, one of them nodded slowly like it was not the first time. They told me not to go back home that night. They suggested staying with someone else. I did. Later, I got a follow-up call. They said the address I went to was a short-term rental, booked under different names over the past year. A rotating spot. Hard to track. The profile disappeared within hours of my report. Nothing else came of it that I know of. No arrest. No updates, just silence. I bought a new mattress from a real store a week later. Delivery and all. I still check the seams sometimes. I still get that tight feeling when my phone buzzes late at night. Sometimes I think about that message. How casual it was. How confident, like they already knew the answer. I almost skipped the listing because it looked boring. Just a desk lamp. Nothing fancy. Black metal base, adjustable arm, chipped paint. The kind of thing you see in dorm rooms or garages, but my room light had gone out 2 nights earlier, and I was tired of using my phone flashlight to find stuff. The price was $25. The description was barely anything. Pickup only. Address sent after confirmation. No small talk. Something about how short it was made me curious. Most sellers overshare. This one did not. I messaged, got the address, and headed out without telling anyone. It was early evening, that awkward time where the sky looks unfinished and everything feels paused. The address took me to the edge of a neighborhood that looked forgotten. Not run down exactly, just stalled. Houses with boarded windows next to houses that looked totally fine. Lawns half mowed. Trash cans left out days too long. The street was quiet in a way that did not feel peaceful. More like everyone agreed not to come outside. The house was a 2-story place with faded siding and a sagging porch. No cars in the driveway. Weeds pushing through cracks. Mailbox hanging open with old paper stuffed inside. I parked across the street and checked the address again. It matched. I messaged to say I was there. No reply. I waited a few minutes, sitting in my car, scrolling aimlessly. The listing was still up, still active. I got out and walked up the driveway. The porch creaked under my feet. The front door was closed but not locked. It shifted slightly when I touched it. I hesitated. I know better than to walk into random houses, but I also did not see any sign saying stay out. No tape. No boards over the door. Just quiet. I called out to see if anyone was there. No response. The air inside smelled old, like dust and cold wood. I stepped in. The house was empty in the way that feels intentional. Not abandoned because of time, but because someone took what they wanted and left everything else behind. No furniture. No decorations. Just scuff marks on the walls where things used to be. The floor was covered in a thin layer of dirt like nobody had walked through in weeks. I moved slowly, heart beating harder with every step. The lamp was not in the front room. I checked the listing photo again. Plain background. No clues. I followed the sound of my own footsteps deeper into the house. That was when I noticed the light. One room on the second floor had a faint glow coming from under the door. Not bright, just enough to notice. Everything else was dark. My first thought was that someone else was there, maybe the seller waiting. My second thought was that I should leave. I did not leave. I went upstairs, each step creaking loud enough to make me wince. The door with the light was slightly open. I pushed it wider and it froze. The room was packed, floor to ceiling. Shelves, tables, bins, stacks, all filled with stuff. Lamps, chairs, headphones, game consoles, tools, kitchen gadgets, framed art, shoes, unopened boxes, opened boxes, random cables tangled together. It was like a storage unit exploded into a bedroom. And then I noticed the tags. Little sticky notes, masking tape labels, handwritten prices, item descriptions. All of them looked familiar because I had seen them online. Facebook Marketplace listings. Dozens of them, maybe more. I recognized a Bluetooth speaker I had almost bought last week. A mirror I remembered saving. A coffee table with the same scratch on the leg as the photo. It all matched. This was not random stuff. This was inventory. My skin prickled. The lamp I came for was sitting on a desk in the corner, plugged in, turned on, right where the listing photo had been taken. Same angle, same wall. I stood there trying to process it. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from the seller telling me to grab the lamp and leave the money on the desk. No name, no greeting, just instructions. I looked around again. There was no sign of anyone lived there. No bed, no clothes, no bathroom items, just goods, shelves of them, stacked like a store that forgot to open. I noticed something else then, a whiteboard on the wall. It had dates written on it, times, addresses crossed out, names or usernames maybe, some circled, some underlined. It looked like a schedule. Pickups, drop-offs, meetups. This was not someone clearing out a house. This was someone running something. My brain started filling in gaps I did not like. Stolen items, resold items, maybe storage between sales. Maybe worse. I suddenly felt very visible standing in that room, like I had stepped behind a curtain I was not meant to see past. I unplugged the lamp with shaking hands and set the money on the desk like instructed. I did not want to stay long enough to look closer at anything else. As I turned to leave, I noticed a door at the back of the room I had not seen before. It was closed, locked from the outside. The thought hit me hard and fast. What if this room was the only one being used? What if the rest of the house was just cover? What if people came here thinking they were meeting one seller, but were actually being tracked, logged, moved through this place like entries on that board? I backed out slowly and closed the door behind me. The hallway felt colder now. Louder. I moved fast down the stairs, every creak sounding like it would give me away. I half expected someone to step out from one of the empty rooms, but no one did. Outside, the street looked exactly the same. Quiet. Normal. My car was right where I left it. I got in and locked the doors immediately, hands still shaking. As I pulled away, my phone buzzed again. The seller sent a thumbs-up reaction. Nothing else. I drove around the block instead of going straight home, checking my mirrors, feeling stupid for it but unable to stop. No one followed. No cars pulled out behind me. Still, the feeling stuck. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I searched Marketplace again. I found the lamp listing. Still up. Same photos. Same description. Pickup only. Same price. But now it showed a different location across town. I clicked on the seller profile. Dozens of listings. All different items. All pickup only. All with vague descriptions. None with personal details. I reported the listing. I do not know if anything came of it. The next day, the house listing was gone. The address no longer showed on maps, like it never existed. The lamp still works. It sits on my desk, lighting up the same corner of my room every night. Sometimes when I turn it on, I think about that room upstairs filled with other people's almost purchases, sitting quiet and organized, waiting for the next message. I knew the day was going sideways before I even left the house. Not in a dramatic way, just one of those days where everything feels slightly delayed, like the world is buffering. My alarm did not go off. My phone was stuck on 5%. I had to wear shoes I hate because the others were still wet. None of that mattered, though, because I was locked onto one thing: the dresser. I had been sleeping out of plastic bins for weeks. I recently moved rooms and everything I owned was either stacked on the floor or shoved into random corners. When the dresser listing showed up on Marketplace, it felt like a solution, not just furniture. Tall wooden dresser, 6 drawers, scuffed but solid. The kind of thing you can beat up, and it still works. The price was $140. The photos were taken fast, blurry, but the dresser looked heavy in a good way. The seller messaged back quick and gave me an address across town. Pickup only. Said it had to be gone today. That should have slowed me down, but it didn't. I borrowed my cousin's SUV and drove over, telling myself I was being productive for once. That house was in a quiet neighborhood with trees that looked too big for the lots. Older houses, close together, driveways cracked and patched. The seller's place was a small blue house with a garage door halfway open. The dresser was already sitting in the driveway like it was waiting for me. That alone felt strange. Most people make you come inside. This one was already out, exposed to the sun, drawers slightly open. The seller came out and leaned against the garage, arms crossed. They looked stressed in a way that felt recent, like something had just happened or was about to. They kept glancing at their phone, then up the street, then back at me. I told myself they were just in a rush. I walked around the dresser, checking the corners, opening drawers. It smelled like old wood and dust, not bad, just lived in. One drawer stuck a little but worked if you pulled harder. I was already picturing it in my room, clothes folded instead of crumpled. I agreed to take it. While I was figuring out how to lift it, I noticed things around the driveway that did not match. Half-empty boxes labeled with marker. A mattress leaning against the fence. Random picture frames stacked face down. It looked less like someone selling one thing and more like someone unloading pieces of a life in chunks. The seller told me I could load it up and pay after. That was another odd thing, but I did not question it. I grabbed one side and started sliding the dresser toward the back of the SUV. It was heavier than it looked. Solid in a way that made my arms burn. That was when the car came screeching down the street. It pulled up too fast and stopped at an angle like whoever was driving did not care where it landed. The door flew open and someone jumped out already yelling. Not words I could understand at first, just raw noise that cut straight through the quiet block. Neighbors' heads popped out behind curtains. Dogs started barking. The person stormed up the driveway, pointing at the dresser, then at the seller, then at me. Their face was red, eyes wide, shaking with something bigger than anger. The seller froze. Completely still, like they had been expecting this but hoped it would not happen today. I backed away instinctively, hands up, trying to make myself small. The yelling got clearer then. The dresser was not supposed to be sold. It belonged to both of them. Marital property. The words hit me like I had stepped into traffic without looking. The person kept yelling, pacing, waving their arms, voice cracking, and then rising again. They pointed at me and said I was the final straw. Not metaphorically. Literally, like I was the last thing that broke whatever thin line they were holding on to. I did not know where to look. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was in my throat. This was not a scam. This was not even about money. This was someone's life spilling into the driveway with me standing in the middle of it holding a dresser. The seller finally moved, trying to calm things down, hands out, shoulders hunched. It did not work. The person screamed louder, tears streaming down their face, voice going hoarse. They kicked one of the boxes and it burst open, clothes spilling out onto the concrete. Everything felt exposed. Neighbors started coming outside. One leaned on a fence pretending not to watch. Another stood on their porch with their phone out. The attention only made things worse. The person yelling turned toward the street, shouting about betrayal, about courts, about paperwork that was ignored. I realized then this was not just a breakup. This was a divorce that had gone bad, really bad. The dresser was not furniture, it was a symbol. Something that had been fought over, probably in rooms with lawyers and stacks of documents, and now it was sitting half-loaded into my cousin's SUV. The person rushed toward the dresser and grabbed a drawer, yanking it open so hard it came off the rails. Socks and papers spilled out. Folded things mixed with envelopes and old photos. One photo slid across the driveway and stopped near my foot. I did not pick it up. The seller looked like they might pass out. They kept shaking their head, hands trembling, trying to explain without really explaining. It was clear they thought selling the dresser would be quick, clean, quiet. They were wrong. The person who showed up suddenly turned their anger fully on me. They stepped closer, pointing, saying I was helping steal from them. That I was part of it now. That I would regret this. I could smell their sweat and something sour underneath. My legs felt weak. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. My mouth opened and closed and my brain stalled. I wanted to say I did not know. I wanted to say I would leave, but the words stuck. Then they started crying. Not quiet crying. Loud, messy, collapsing onto the driveway crying. Knees hitting concrete, hands on their face. The shift was so sudden, it made my stomach flip. 1 second rage, the next total breakdown. The seller stood there frozen, eyes glassy, like they had seen this before and did not know how to stop it anymore. The dresser sat there between us, drawers open, guts spilling out like it had been cut open. Someone called the police. I did not see who. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe one of them. I only noticed when sirens started getting closer, echoing off the houses. The person on the ground heard them too and started laughing in this hollow way that made my skin crawl. They said this was perfect, that this was exactly how it should end. The seller sank onto the garage step, head in their hands. When the police arrived, everything slowed down and sped up at the same time. Questions were asked. It's checked. The driveway filled with flashing lights. The dresser became an object of interest, then evidence of a dispute, then just an inconvenience. I explained why I was there. I showed the listing, the messages. They nodded, clearly seeing this kind of thing before. They told me to step away from the dresser. I did, gladly. The person who showed up kept talking, calmer now but still intense, explaining the situation in long, tangled sentences. Marital assets, court orders, things not finalized. The seller barely spoke at all. After a while, the police told me I could leave. Not with the dresser, just leave. I did not argue. I closed the sub door slowly, hands shaking, and backed out of the driveway while everyone watched. As I drove away, I saw the dresser still sitting there and my mirror drawers open, clothes hanging out, lit up by flashing lights. It looked less like furniture and more like a wreck. I pulled over a few blocks away and just sat there, breathing, trying to calm down. My phone buzzed with a message from the seller apologizing, saying they would relist later, saying it was complicated. I did not respond. I went home and stacked my clothes back into the bins. The room felt smaller than before. That night, I kept replaying the moment that was called the final straw. How someone else's breaking point had landed right on top of me because I wanted a dresser. The next day, the listing was gone. The seller's profile was gone too. I still do not have a dresser. Every time I see one on Marketplace now, I scroll past. Some furniture holds more than clothes. I did not wake up planning to meet a stranger for a dog. It started with that restless feeling where you keep refreshing apps like something is supposed to appear just for you. I had been wanting a puppy for months, scrolling listings late at night, saving pictures, telling myself I would wait until things lined up. That morning, one listing felt like it punched through the screen. Small tan puppy, big ears, crooked white stripe on its nose. The caption was short and messy, like it was typed in a hurry. Needs new home today. No breeders. No paperwork. Price was $300. I felt that rush right away, the kind that makes you ignore details. I messaged and the reply came fast. Too fast. The seller sent an address on the edge of town, a place I had only driven past once. Older houses, narrow streets, yards fenced in with random stuff. I asked about cash and they said no cash. That was the first weird thing. They wanted screenshots of my bank app instead, proof I had the money before they would even show the puppy. That set off alarms in my head, but I kept going anyway. I told myself I could just walk away if it got strange. The drive over felt longer than usual. The sky was bright, but the neighborhood looked dull, like the sun did not fully reach it. I parked in front of a small house with a sagging porch and a fence that did not quite close. I could hear barking before I even got out of the car. High pitch, frantic, like the sound was bouncing around inside something too small. The seller came up fast. They looked rough around the edges. Not dirty, just worn down. Like someone who had slept in their clothes too many nights in a row. The puppy was in their arms, squirming, licking, nail-scratching at their hoodie. Seeing it in real life almost broke my resolve. It was smaller than I thought, ribs a little visible, eyes bright and nervous. I stepped closer without thinking. Right away, the seller brought up the screenshots again. They wanted me to open my bank app and show my balance. Not transfer, not pay, just show. I said no, I said I had cash. They shook their head and insisted. The way they watched my hands made my skin crawl. Not in a dramatic way, just this tight feeling in my chest like something was closing in. The argument stayed low and tense. No yelling. Just that back and forth where neither side wants to be the first to back down. The puppy wriggled harder, whining, and the seller loosened their grip for just a second. That second was enough. The puppy slipped free and bolted through the open fence like it had been waiting for that chance. Tiny legs moving fast, nails clicking on the sidewalk. My heart jumped into my throat. I took off after it without thinking. The seller shouted behind me, but I barely registered it. All I could see was that little tan blur heading down the street. The puppy ran straight into a neighboring yard where the gate was wide open. A man was standing there with a trash bag, halfway through taking it out. The puppy lunged and bit his ankle. Not a deep bite, but enough to make him yell and drop the bag. Garbage spilled everywhere. Everything froze for half a second. The puppy backed away, barking. The man looked down at his leg, then up at the seller who had just caught up. His face changed in a way I will never forget. Recognition. Not confusion. Recognition. He said the seller's name out loud before he could stop himself. Then he said jail. Not casually, with weight, like that word had been sitting in his mouth for a while. The seller went pale. The puppy darted again, circling like it did not know where to go. My stomach dropped straight through my body. This was no longer about a dog. This was something spilling out into the open. The neighbor kept talking, pointing at the cellar, saying he remembered them from county. Something about time inside. Something about trouble. The cellar started backing away toward the house, eyes darting, breathing fast. The puppy ran back toward the porch, confused, nails slipping on the steps. I stood there feeling stupid and exposed, like I had wandered into someone else's unfinished story. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The marketplace chat. The seller had sent another message even though they were right there, still pushing for screenshots, still trying to salvage something. The neighbor sat down hard on the curb, pressing a hand to his ankle. Blood spotted his sock. Not a lot, but enough. Someone else came out of a house down the street, drawn by the noise. Then another. Suddenly, it felt crowded. The seller snapped, not yelling, just breaking. It grabbed at the puppy, missing, and grabbed it again, holding it too tight. The puppy squealed and went still. That sound made my chest hurt. The neighbor told them to let go. The seller did not. Someone called the police. I did not see who. I just heard the words float through the air and everything shifted again. The seller looked around like they were calculating exits. There were none. The street was too narrow. Too many eyes now. The seller tried one last time to get me to show the bank app. Right there, in front of everyone. Like money screenshots could undo jail recognition and a bleeding ankle. I shook my head and stepped back. My hands were shaking so bad I had to clench them. The puppy wriggled free again and ran straight to me this time, hiding behind my legs like it had picked a side. I crouched without thinking, blocking it with my body. I could feel its heart racing against my calf. It smelled like dirt and fear. Sirens came fast, closer than I expected. Maybe someone nearby had already called earlier for something else. 2 cars pulled up, lights flashing, washing the street in red and blue. The seller sighed like their bones gave up. The neighbor pointed. A lot of pointing happened after that. Everything blurred. Officers separated people. Questions came rapid and overlapping. It's checked. The puppy was taken gently and put in the back of one of the cars, wrapped in a blanket someone brought out. The neighbor was looked at by medics. The seller was cuffed without a fight. I stood off to the side, trying to piece together how a puppy listing turned into this. One of the officers asked me what I was doing there. I told them everything from the beginning, the listing, the price, the screenshots request. They nodded like none of it surprised them. I found out later the seller had been flagged for online scams, fake pet listings, payment tricks, getting access to bank apps. The puppy was real though, taken from someone else and passed around. That part hit me the hardest. The puppy was just collateral in someone's ongoing mess. After it was over, the street emptied slowly. Neighbors lingered, talking in low voices. The house went quiet. The porch light flicked on and off like nothing had happened. I sat in my car for a long time before driving away, hands still shaking. I never got a puppy that day. I still think about that little tan blur sometimes, how fast it ran, how it chose me when everything fell apart. Animal control called me later to ask a few follow-up questions. They said the puppy was safe. That was enough. I scroll Marketplace less now. When I do, I avoid pet listings. Some things are not meant to be traded through a screen. That day proved it in a way I cannot forget. I did not plan on buying a phone that night. It was one of those bored evenings where time feels fake and your brain keeps jumping between apps. My current phone had a cracked screen and the battery died at random, so I kept scrolling Marketplace telling myself I was just looking. Then the iPhone listing popped up. Clean photos. Black model. Not the newest but way better than mine. The price was $260, which felt low but not insane. The post said quick sale, need cash tonight. That line stuck with me in a weird way, like the phone was trying to leave somewhere fast. I messaged and got a reply almost immediately. The seller said we could meet near a closed coffee shop by the river. Public place. Lights, cameras, that made me feel better. I told my brother where I was going just in case, grabbed my wallet, and headed out. The air was cold, but not freezing. That kind of damp chill that makes everything smell like metal and water. The coffee shop parking lot was mostly empty except for one car parked under a flickering streetlight. The river was right behind the lot, dark and moving slow. I parked a few spots away and sat there for a second, checking the listing again. Still up, still active. No red flags screaming at me yet. The seller waved when I got out. They were leaning against their car, hoodie pulled tight, phone already in their hand. They looked normal. Tired, maybe. Not sketchy in the obvious way. I walked over and they handed me the iPhone right away. No small talk. No drawn-out intro. Just straight to the phone. It looked legit. No cracks. Screen clean. Battery decent. It turned on fine. I scrolled through the settings, checking storage, model, all the usual stuff I had learned to do from being burned once before. Everything checked out. But there was one thing. It was still locked to an account. I pointed that out and the seller nodded like they expected it. They said it just needed to be unlocked before sale. They told me to do it so I could see it was clean. That felt backwards. Usually the seller unlocks it first. Still, I thought maybe they just did not know how. I hesitated holding the phone, feeling that quiet pressure to keep things moving. They told me the passcode and asked me to unlock it fully, remove the account, reset it. That is when my stomach tightened. Something about that request felt wrong. Not dangerous exactly, just off. Like being asked to sign something without reading it. I looked around the lot, still empty. Streetlight buzzing. River behind us making that low constant sound. I told myself if anything weird happened, I would just hand it back and leave. I went to the settings, started the process. It asked for the account password. The seller leaned closer, watching my hands, not the screen. I typed it in. The phone froze for a second, then unlocked. That was the exact moment headlights wash over the lot. 2 police cars rolled in fast, not lights blazing yet, but clearly not just passing through. My heart dropped so hard it felt like it hit my shoes. The seller stiffened. The phone vibrated in my hand as the reset started. The officers got out quickly. Suddenly, the lot felt very small. Very bright. They walked straight toward us like they already knew where to go. No hesitation. No scanning. Straight line. My brain went blank. I stood there holding the iPhone like it was about to burn me. The seller stepped back half a step. The officers asked for the phone. I handed it over without thinking. My hands were shaking, and I hated that because I knew I had done nothing wrong. Everything after that moved in chunks, like my memory skips frames. The phone was taken. Questions were asked. It's checked. They separated us without even trying. I was told to sit on the curb. The cold soaked through my jeans. I stared at my shoes and tried to breathe normally. One of the officers came back and explained what was going on. The iPhone had been reported stolen earlier that week. Taken during a Tinder date that went bad. The original owner let someone hold the phone for a second. Then it was gone. Tracked. Flagged. The account stayed locked on purpose so it could be followed. When the seller listed it, the location pinged. When I unlocked it, the signal changed. That was enough to confirm movement and trigger the pickup. I was not the target. I was the proof. I looked over at the seller. They were pale now, hands cuffed behind their back, staring at the ground. Not angry. Not yelling. Just empty, like the night finally caught up to them. The officers asked me to explain everything from the beginning. How I found the listing. Why I came. What I was told to do. I told them all of it. Every message. Every step. My phone was taken for a bit so they could check the chat. They saw everything. Timestamps. Quick replies. The rush. I sat there for what felt like forever while they handled the rest. More cars showed up. Someone took photos of the seller's car. The river kept moving behind us like nothing mattered. People drove past without slowing down. Eventually, the officer handed my phone back and told me it was free to go. No charges, no trouble. They said I did the right thing by cooperating. I nodded a lot. My head felt stuffed with cotton. I got in my car and just sat there. The parking lot was half blocked by police vehicles now. The flickering streetlight buzzed louder than before. My hands would not stop shaking, even though the danger part was over. On the drive home, I kept replaying the moment I typed in that password, how easy it was. How one small action flipped the whole night. I thought about how close I came in driving away with that phone in my pocket, only to have cops show up at my house later. Or worse, get pulled over somewhere random with a stolen device tied to my name. When I got home, my brother was still awake. I told him I did not get the phone. I did not tell him why. I went to my room and sat on my bed in the dark, scrolling through my cracked screen like nothing happened. The next day, the listing was gone. The account name disappeared. No trace. I checked local reports out of curiosity, and saw a short blurb about an arrest connected to stolen property tied to dating app thefts. No names, no details, just enough to make my stomach twist again. I still need a new phone. I still scroll Marketplace sometimes. But now when someone says quick sale or wants me to unlock something myself, I close the app. Some nights stick to you longer than others. That parking lot by the river is one of them. I was already annoyed before I even left the house. Our washing machine had been making this grinding sound like it was chewing rocks, and my mom kept saying we would just deal with it later. Later turned into weeks, clothes piling up, quarters wasted at the laundromat. So when I saw a decent washer listed on Facebook Marketplace for $180, I jumped on it without thinking much. The post said barely used, works great, moving up. That last part should have made me pause, but it didn't. I just wanted clean clothes at home again. The intro message from the seller was weirdly formal for Marketplace, but not enough to scare me off. They sent the address fast. It was on the edge of town, past the strip malls and storage units, in a quiet neighborhood where every house looked kind of unfinished, like they all stopped caring halfway through repairs. I borrowed my uncle's truck and drove out there alone, windows down, music low. I remember thinking how empty the streets felt for a Saturday afternoon. The house was a narrow one-story place, beige paint, chain-link fence leaning inward. The yard was overgrown but not totally abandoned looking. Someone still lived there, just not paying attention anymore. The driveway was packed tight with random stuff. Broken chairs, old boxes, a fridge on its side. I parked on the street and walked up. Before I could even knock, the door opened. I got this instant pressure to move fast. The seller waved me inside right away, pointing toward the back of the house. They said the washer was already hooked up and I could test it. That felt normal enough. People always say test it. Still, I hesitated because going inside a stranger's house always feels off. But I stepped in anyway. The air inside was thick and warm, not hot, just stale, like windows never opened. The hallway was narrow and dim, even though it was daytime. Every surface was crowded with stuff. Bags, boxes, random appliances stacked like a maze. It felt less like a home and more like storage that someone forgot about. I followed the seller through without really looking around, trying not to brush against anything. The laundry room was actually a converted bedroom at the back. Washer and dryer shoved against one wall, hoses snaking across the floor. The washer looked older than the photos, but still solid. The seller told me to try it. I loaded it with nothing, just turned the dial. It started up with a low hum. So far, fine. While it filled, I noticed there were 3 people sitting on the floor against the opposite wall. 2 guys and 1 woman, all about my age or a little older. None of them looked relaxed. They were quiet, staring at their phones to the floor, backs pressed to the wall like they had been there a while. At first, I assumed they were roommates or family. Then I noticed they were all holding small slips of paper or envelopes. That was when the first wrong thought hit me. Why would anyone sit on the floor in a laundry room when there was a whole house? Why would they look so stuck? The washer finished filling and started agitating. It made a loud clunking sound. The seller smiled like that proved something and stepped out of the room, saying they would be right back. The door frame creaked when they leaned on it. Then they were gone. The washer kept running. Minutes passed. The other people did not move. I shifted my weight, feeling awkward, and leaned against the door frame. That was when I realized the door behind me was not just closed, it was locked. Not a normal lock either. There was a thick metal bar slid into brackets across the outside of the door. I could see it through the crack. My chest tightened. I turned back toward the room. One of the guys finally looked up at me. His face was tired. Not scared exactly, just done. That scared me more than panic would have. He tapped the envelope in his hand against his knee. The woman rubbed her wrists like they hurt. It took a while for it to sink in. I was not there early. I was late. These people had already gone through whatever this was. They were waiting. Not for the washer. Not for the seller. For something else that was not coming. The washer finished its cycle and shut off. The sudden quiet was loud. No one spoke. I checked my phone. No signal. Not even one bar. I tried to convince myself it was just the back of the house. Thick walls. Bad service. Still, my hands were sweating. After a bit, the seller came back. They stood in the doorway, but did not step inside. They looked past all of us like we were furniture. They gestured the washer, clearly done with the test. I moved toward the door, thinking that was it. I would leave. Awkward, but fine. The bar did not move. The seller left again. Time got weird after that. There were no clocks. My phone battery kept dropping even though I was not using it much. The other buyers finally started shifting, stretching, standing up one at a time. One guy whispered something under his breath, but I could not make it out. I noticed then that the envelopes they were holding were receipts. Handwritten. Same handwriting on all of them. Slowly, piece by piece, I understood. They had all paid. Cash. A seller took the money, promised refunds because something was wrong with the appliance, told them to wait inside while they grabbed it, then locked them in, said it would just be a minute. That minute stretched. I asked myself why they had not forced the door. Then I saw the door closer. Heavy duty, reinforced frame. Even if we all pushed, it might not budge. And even if it did, where would we go? The house felt like it went on forever, packed with junk and dead ends. Hours passed. I know it was hours because my stomach started hurting and the light outside the covered window changed from gray to orange. The seller came back one more time, slid bottles of water into the room, then left again. No eye contact. No rush. One of the guys finally snapped. He kicked the washer hard, denting the side. It made a loud bang that echoed through the house. After that, things escalated fast. The seller came running, shouting from somewhere else in the house, footsteps pounding. The bar slid open just enough for them to shove a chair against the door from the outside, blocking it even more. That was when fear fully landed. Not dramatic, not screaming, just heavy and cold. I realized we were not just waiting for money, we were being kept. Night came. The room got darker. The washer sat there useless, lid closed, like a joke. The air got worse. We took turns sitting and standing because the floor hurt after a while. Nobody had a real plan. Phone still dead. No windows we could reach. I do not know what finally did it. Maybe the noise. Maybe someone outside noticed something. Maybe the seller messed up. But sometime after midnight, there was a loud crash from the front of the house. Voices. Not the sellers. The bar slid back suddenly, and the door swung open hard enough to hit the wall. Everything after that blurred together. Flashing lights through the hallway. People shouting instructions. Being pulled out into cold air. Sitting on the curb wrapped in a blanket that smelled like plastic. I remember looking back at the house and seeing how small it actually was. How stupid it looked. Like any other messed up place. I never got my $180 back. None of us did. The washer was real. It worked. That part was true. Everything else was not. I still use the laundromat. Every time someone online says come inside to test it, I close the app. I did not even plan to buy a couch that day. It started as a bored scroll during lunch, half paying attention while reading comments on dumb videos. Facebook Marketplace is usually junk, but that afternoon it felt different, like every listing was slightly off. Mismatched chairs, scratch tables, weird lighting and photos. Then the couch showed up. Brown sectional, kinda ugly but solid looking, pushed against a wall with peeling paint. The price was $120. No long description, just a couple blurry photos and a pic of a dress across town. Something about it felt urgent, like it would be gone fast. I did not think deep about why. I just messaged and got a reply almost right away. I should say I was 19 at the time, still live at home, still thinking every cheap thing online was a win. I had just moved my gaming setup into the basement and wanted something to sit on that was not a folding chair. My car barely fit a couch, but I convinced myself it would work. The seller sent the address, no name, just a street and a unit number. I read it twice to make sure. It was one of those old apartment buildings near the rail yard, the kind with gravel parking lots and flickering outdoor lights even during the day. The drive over felt longer than it was. Clouds were low, and the air had that heavy smell like rain that never fully shows up. When I pulled into the lot, there were only 3 other cars. None of them looked like someone about to move furniture. I parked crooked and sat there for a minute, scrolling back to the listing to look at the couch again. The photos looked worse now. The cushions were dented in a way that did not match normal use, like someone had been sitting in the same spot for way too long. I ignored that thought and got out. The building entrance was propped open with a brick. Inside smelled like old carpet and something sore I could not place. The hallway lights buzzed. Unit numbers were scratched into the walls like someone gave up halfway through painting them. I followed the numbers until I hit the right door. It was already open a crack. I paused, then pushed it wider and stepped in. The apartment was almost empty. No decorations, no tiv, no personal stuff. Just a couch in the middle of the room like it had been dragged there and left. The windows were covered with sheets instead of curtains, letting in this dull gray light. The floor around the couch was clean in a way that did not match the rest of the place. I noticed that before anything else, like someone had scrubbed just that area over and over. I walked closer, and that was when I saw the tape. Not the bright kind you see on shows, but thin strips stuck to the underside of one cushion, barely visible unless you leaned in. There were also small numbered stickers on the frame, the kind used in storage or inventory. My brain tried to label them as something normal. Moving tags maybe, resale markings, anything but what they actually were. The seller finally appeared from the back room. I did not look at them for long. I just remember they looked tired in a way that sleep would not fix. They kept their hands in their pockets and stood too far away from the couch, like it was not theirs anymore. The room felt wrong, not scary in a jumpy way, but heavy, like being underwater without realizing it. I started checking the couch cushions, lifting them carefully. There were stains that had been cleaned but not erased. Darker patches soaked deep into the fabric. One cushion felt heavier than the others. When I pressed down, something inside did not bounce back. It stayed sunken, slow to rise. My stomach dropped, but I still told myself it was nothing. Old couch, cheap couch, people spill stuff. Then I noticed the smell. It was faint, almost covered by cleaning spray, but it was there. Not rot, not garbage. Something metallic and sweet mixed together. My head started buzzing. The seller shifted their weight like they were counting seconds. I looked around again and realized there were marks on the wall behind the couch. Not scratches. Dense, like repeated impact at the same height. I finally stepped back and really looked at the couch as a whole. The way it was positioned made no sense for a live room. It faced a blank wall. There was no table, no stand, no lamp, just a couch and the wall. I imagined someone sitting there for hours, days maybe, staring at nothing. The thought would not leave once it showed up. That was when I saw the envelope on the floor near the couch leg. White, official-looking, slightly crumpled. I did not open it. I did not need to. I could see a bad shape through the paper, printed faintly. My heart started racing. The seller noticed me looking and finally moved, stepping between me and the couch like they were guarding it, or maybe hiding from it. They pulled out their phone and glanced at it, then at the door, then back at the couch. Their breathing changed, fast and shallow. I felt like I was standing in the wrong place at the wrong time, like I had walked onto a stage before the set was ready. I did not touch the couch again. Everything clicked all at once. The empty apartment, the cheap price, the rushed replies, the tags, the cleaning, the way the seller would not come near it. I realized this was not a normal sale. This was someone trying to get rid of something they should not have had, something that was not supposed to leave that room. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a notification from the marketplace chat. The seller had sent another message even though we were in the same room. I did not open it. I did not need to. I already knew what it would say. Something about needing it gone fast. Something about timing. Then I heard sirens, distant at first, then closer. Not one, but multiple. The sound bounced off the concrete outside and filled the apartment like pressure. The seller froze. Their face went pale and their eyes locked on the couch, not on me. I understood then that the cops were not a surprise. They were expected. Maybe not that exact minute, but soon. I backed toward the door slowly, not wanting to draw attention. My legs felt weak, like they might fold. The seller did not stop me. It did not even look at me anymore. They just stared at the couch like it might move on its own. The sirens got louder. I could hear car doors outside, footsteps on gravel. I stepped into the hallway and the air felt lighter immediately, like I could breathe again. I did not run. I walked fast, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I got to my car just as two police vehicles pulled into the lot, lights flashing but sirens cutting off. Officers moved toward the building with purpose. No rush, no panic. That scared me more than if they had been running. I sat in my car with the engine on, hands gripping the wheel. I did not know if I should leave or stay. I chose to leave. I pulled out slowly, trying not to draw attention. No one stopped me. No one looked my way. As I drove off, I saw more vehicles arriving in my mirror, unmarked ones too. I went straight home and parked in the driveway, just sitting there for a long time. My phone kept buzzing with missed calls from the seller, then messages, then nothing. The listing disappeared. The chat vanished like it never existed. I checked local news later that night, but found nothing. Maybe it would show up later. Maybe it would not. I never bought a couch that day. I never went back to that area. Sometimes when I sit on my folding chair in the basement, I think about that couch still sitting in the middle of that room, tagged and silent, waiting. I think about how close I was to loading it into my car, bringing it home, letting it sit in my live space like it was normal. I do not scroll Marketplace the same way anymore. When something looks too cheap, too rushed, I keep going. Some things are priced low for reasons you do not want to know.